Hey, good afternoon. Actually, no, it's still good morning for everybody, I think, on the live. I hope I got the right chat, the right live on here. I have to do it on my phone because my headphones don't want to connect to the laptop for some reason. So I had to do it on my phone. Let me see if I grab the right one. Hopefully. Let's see. Hey, Happy Mac, how are you, brother? How are you? See, I had a schedule for 11, and then I hit live, and here we are. All good, baby. All good and gravy. Yeah, we're gonna see if we can get anybody else connected on here. Lot of things to actually talk about, but I really wanted to do the good morning, my man, in the house. Man, it feels so different being out here. What's weird is I am in families, house and everything, and I feel totally comfortable here. But you know, um, it's it's weird because I want to do my life like I do it at home, and it just doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel the same. It's like I don't have all my computer stuff. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. Good morning, cool cat. Let's see. I know you're having a great time with the family, man. You better believe it. You better believe it. You know what? Unfortunately, last night I was visiting my brother's in-laws family yesterday all afternoon, and I didn't realize that they actually have Wi-Fi in their house, and it was actually strong enough. But just everybody just talking. I wanted to be respectful of their time and all that stuff. So I didn't go live last night, but I was like, oh man, that would have been perfect to go live because the Wi-Fi was strong enough about just right outside the house, so I can show you guys the dirt road, and the small passage so that you guys can see there. I did fly my drone for a little bit. It was raining, so I did fly the drone, and I grabbed a couple of takes from there. I already started doing editing the video that I'm going to premiere for members only. So you guys stay tuned. I'm working on it. I got the introduction at least. I got the introduction part ready, I think. And then I'm going to go ahead and start the rest of the video today. So, you guys, I will have probably different clothing on for the premiere video, but I will be on the chat with you guys live, okay? Good morning, Tanya. How are you? God bless you. Thank you for being here. Robert, good morning, sir. Some of you guys that actually have my personal number, there's very few actually have my personal number. You guys get a photo of some of the things that whether it's food or areas that are out around me. So if you guys would like to see photos, let me know, and I will try to maybe include them. Something in a live. I mean, I will be going back to the States here in about 2.5 weeks now. So I'll be able to go ahead and talk more about it. But it's good to see you guys in here. What have you guys heard? Any news that you think I may not know about that has been going on in the States? Because I have been listening to a lot of news, but you know, it doesn't seem like the media is really covering as much as they should. At least that's just what I think. I'm not using my laptop. Like I said at the beginning, it doesn't want to connect um, my headset. You guys know my little PlayStation headset. Hopefully, it didn't get ruined, but I do have this mic, and I don't know if it's gonna take it. I will test it later so you guys know. All right, let's see. Iceman, good morning, sir. Good morning. All right, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that I wanted to talk about today is, um, this whole thing that we're still going on with ICE. It seems like from everything that I'm watching is that they still think that the ICE agents are criminals in Minnesota. And what I find interesting is that a lot of Americans on the left, for some reason, they just buy into this, and they don't really care about truth. To be honest, they just, I don't know, man. I can't explain why they think the way they think. I really don't. Let's see. Good morning, Dominic. Hump day, hump day, hump day, hump day, hump day. That's a commercial, guys. A commercial. Good morning, Tyler. God bless you, brother. Thank you for joining. The U.S. has deployed 25,000 troops to countries surrounding Iran, Jordan. Huh. Very, very interesting. Didn't know that one. Yeah. I already drank my coffee. Black, of course. Robert. Trinity is not. Oh, you know what? I didn't text Trinity. Let's see. I don't think I have her phone saved on my other one. All right, let me see. I might disappear for a little bit, but I'm going to try to text Trinity to join us. Okay, give me a second. We go. Reconnecting. We're good. Let me see if I can monitor this on my other phone because yeah, I see. Thank you, Happy Man. So for those people that are still doubting President Donald Trump, I can tell you, man, everything that happens for a reason. And if you're a Christian, I'm going to tell you just right off the bat, God is in control of everything, good and bad. And if you don't understand why that is, uh, hey, Bull Striker, good morning, welcome, welcome. If you don't understand what that means is, a lot of people, when it comes to religion, okay, a lot of people always say, "Oh my God, well, what if God was so good? Why does He allow this? Why does He allow that to happen?" And you have to understand something. We have the right to choose. We get to choose if we want to if we want to follow God or not. And when it comes to things, good and bad things that happen. Hey Samuel, how are you, brother? Good to see you. Been a while. My texting skills are seriously bad. It's all good, man. I know that the typos and the mistakes on the little phone thing, whatever. But here's the thing about the good and the bad that happens to us. Okay, while we are obedient to God, we see blessings and we see good things happening to us. Now let's acknowledge the reality of you know Adam and Eve were created to be immortal as long as we chose to stay with God and as long as we chose to be obedient to God. Just one thing that they told them not to do, and it doesn't matter what that one thing was. It's the fact that disobedience is what was being put at test. And because of our sin, we started getting farther and farther away from God. Now He's all merciful and graceful, and He wants all of us to be able to, have a relationship with Him. Well, for over 4,000 years, we've been separating ourselves. Everybody's going to hell. But Jesus came to us. God sent us Jesus. And I believe that everybody that died believing, trusting, waiting for God, when Jesus died and went to hell, He grabbed all those souls that belonged to Him and brought them back up with Him to take to heaven. I believe, thank you, Cotton Edge. Give me a second, I'll read that message in a little bit, brother. And so we have Jesus Christ, which, by the way, this is one way that we can save ourselves from going to hell. And so we come to today and we always ask, well, why, if God is so good, why are these tsunamis happening? Why are these hurricanes destroying towns and all these other stuff? Why are these tornadoes? And, you know, the rain falls on the bad and the righteous, on the evil and the good. And at the end of the day, when God comes for his harvest, he's going to grab everybody to judgment. And those who have trusted in him, those who have believed in him, will have a chance to be with God and stay in heaven with God. And we can enjoy our new earth. Symbolically, I don't know what that's going to look like. Only God knows. But symbolically, we have this new earth that we're going to be living in and live forever with no pain, no sorrow. I mean, it's just amazing. And that's what my faith is. I hope that this is something that I can enjoy as well as my children. But then, there's good things that happens to us, and then there's bad, right? But you have to understand that it's sin that causes us uh, to to be punished. And unfortunately, for the evil of the few, a lot of the innocent, um, you know, get punished with it. But our main goal is this is just for religious people. This is just for people that believe in God. Anybody else, you guys don't have to listen to this. If our job is to, no matter how good or how bad the times are, that we are to be faithful to God and we are to trust in God, and that is our goal. So, a lot of people that don't want to believe in God, don't make excuses. If you don't want to believe in God, don't believe in God, right? It doesn't matter if you believe in God. You don't even have to believe in the devil, but I will tell you this. In order for you to go to heaven, in order for you to be with God, you have to accept, you have to choose God. And the thing is, even if you don't believe, even if you don't choose the devil, it doesn't matter. He will still take you. Because if there is no room for you to be with the Father, the only alternative is the devil and hell. And believe me, there is nobody having parties in hell. And nobody going over there drinking alcohol and just partying with all these women and stuff. That's not how it happens. Okay? You will be punished and you will suffer for an eternity. And that's horrible. I don't want that. I'd rather be in heaven with people that are, you know, pain free, that are living joyful lives, and are just taken care of by God. And you say, oh my God, well, how can you say that? And there's going to be so many people suffering. That's their choice. Bad things happen to people that choose bad things to happen. We can go a lot deeper into that, but that's just a little, over the surface touch that I want to do. All right, Cutting Edge, thank you so much for the super chat, brother. The left, man, I should have brought my glasses. The left use this, Dennis, Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky. This man is evil. I believe that. They like to use a strong phrase of the creator of the Black Panthers. You can kill the revolutionary, but not the revolution. Uh, you know, that's interesting. I don't know exactly what strategies they're going to be using. All I can tell you is the devil is using everything that has had a worked in the past. Good morning, Brian. I see you, brother. And I see that just like the socialist, right? Socialism, it sounds like a great thing because it sounds so humanitarian. It sounds like we're going to be helping so many people, and oh my gosh, everybody's going to be taken care of. We're all excited for socialism until it doesn't work. And unfortunately, socialism does not sustain itself. It just doesn't. And people that believe that socialism lasts forever, I'm going to tell you, I am more concerned and worried, not that President Trump is doing anything bad. I don't agree with some of the things he's doing or how he goes about it. The last thing that I heard, not from him, but and I'm assuming that it will be true. I will find out eventually. But the one thing that I have heard from another YouTuber on the left, of course, he put a video of Cat Williams saying that the president has said that he had just met with the president of Puerto Rico and the president of the Virgin Islands. Now, I haven't heard him say that, but in all reality, I will say this: my only excuse for for President Trump. Okay, I'm going to defend President Trump. My only excuse for him is this, and I put this on the chat for the one channel that I heard this on. My only excuse is that territories, they have governors and lieutenant governors. And governors in states, they are the president of that territory. I know it's governor and I know what that means, okay? But you have to understand, they are also commander in chiefs of their state or territory. So I can understand why he will make that mistake to say that. That is my excuse, and that's how I excuse my president, okay? I got my president's back 100%. No matter what, I got his back 100%. So there you go. If you guys have heard that, you can let me know on here if President Trump actually said that he met with the president of Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. I'll look it up. I just haven't had the time. Oh my gosh. And by the way, I am having the most horrible time sleeping. I wake up so much. My time is still screwed up. It's only like 2 hour difference, but it's so screwed up. Like I can't get up at 3 in the morning. You know what I mean? Because 3 in the morning is gonna be 1 in the morning. I can't get up at 5 in the morning because it'd be 3 in the morning, but I gotta adjust. And it's just horrible. It's horrible. Last night I went to sleep so late because I was still listening to the news, and then I was also trying to edit my little video for my members. It's coming soon, guys. Coming soon. Jazir says that it works in Denmark. Sure. I believe. Now let me tell you why it works in Denmark. And maybe you can actually put this in the comments, guys. I can't read every single comment. I apologize. Hey, Catwalk. If you okay, so Jazir, you said that this works in Greenland. Okay, I think that's what you said, right? Did I just read that right? Oh my gosh, where's my brain? Denmark. Okay, it works in Denmark. I Let me tell you, what does Denmark do to protect the world? When a country like Iran needs help, who do they call for? Do they call for Denmark? No. Nobody gives a shit about Denmark. Nobody even knows what Denmark is. Nobody even knows what Denmark is until right now. Honestly, let's be honest. Nobody knows. They don't know. They don't know what they're doing. They don't do anything. Hi, Bitsy. You see what I'm saying? Like, okay, so if we don't have that many responsibilities, like I'm going to tell you this, uh, Sweden, the universal healthcare went down the shit. So they had to do something. They had to control immigration because for the longest time they were this socialist country. They still kind of are, but they were this socialist country. They believe that they got to accept all these illegal immigrants and the free universal health care. All of a sudden, it doesn't work. In Mexico, I'm going to bring it right here to our hemisphere here in Americas. In Mexico, they're socialist. But you know what? When the Mexican president saw that there was hundreds of thousands, millions of people going through Mexico, watch this, socialism, okay? This is what they do. So they have free schools for their Mexicans. They got hospitals for the Mexicans. When they had all these massive illegal immigrants coming through, okay, they had to buy food. They had to pay. Some people could. Some people could pay for a place to stay. Now they say that Democrats were giving them money. I don't know about that, but that's what they say. Okay, and so Mexico was booming. Economy was rising. The president said, yeah, of course, yeah. You know what? They can take their own poison. But you know what? Mexico was making a lot of money. Not only were they making money from the cartels, they were making over $61 billion in money, in revenue from cartels. Imagine that. Why would the Mexican president want to get rid of them, right? $61 billion, okay? Hi, Haley, good morning. And so people don't want to look at that, okay? But then they also get over 40-something billion dollars of remittances, from illegals or migrants that are here in this country. So they're getting over $120 billion annually in revenue, in tax collection, money, right? For Mexico. You got all these illegal immigrants. Hi, Tony. They have all these illegal immigrants busting in through Mexico. They know, the Mexican government knows that they're not going to stay in Mexico, right? They're not supposed to stay in Mexico. And so while the immigration caravans are going through, they they were making money, they were giving health care, and the one thing that happened is the locals were not getting the medical care that they were getting before. Okay, so you have to look at that. Now, let's see. Speculation is what others do. Okay, yeah, I don't do a speculation. Sometimes, I guess, but this is real. And so you have clinics, you have churches, you have hotels, motels, restaurants, fast food vendors, everybody. I mean, they were ranking billions of dollars out of millions of illegals going through Mexico. They were ranking billions just on the illegal immigrants. Imagine that. Just imagine that. And then when the border closed, oh, everything changed. Now, all these illegal immigrants that were coming to the United States, all of a sudden, they were not getting through anymore. All of a sudden, boop, they're stuck. Where do we go? Where do we go? Oh, we got to stay here in Mexico. And when they stayed in Mexico, now the people start protesting and they start saying, get out of here. Hondurans, get out of here. You know, Venezuelans, get out of here. And then the people in the clinics were complaining because they were no longer getting money from these illegal immigrants. But now they are just being a burden because the illegal immigrants that are being stuck in Mexico, all of a sudden now they know that they don't have this money to sustain themselves in Mexico for, for however long. And so they decide to just try to find jobs in Mexico. And all the Mexican population started getting pissed off. All the Mexican citizens started getting pissed off because they started seeing a big drop in employment. Now, the reason why that happens is because if they have no permission to work, okay, they will work under the table. Now, the judge might see that there's a lot of jobs, unemployed people that are looking for jobs, and you have to understand this, man. Use your common sense, man. Use your brain. Every time that they get the numbers from unemployment, they look at the people searching for work. So just imagine this: you got 1 million Mexicans or Hondurans or whoever they are, Hispanics, working under the table for construction companies, for restaurants, for whatever you want to call it, right? They're working under the table, they get paid under the table, they don't report that income, those positions are never reported as filled or whatever. And so whenever somebody goes out there and looks for a job, boom, it catches. Okay, this person is looking for a job, unemployment. Second person, third person, 1,000 people, 100,000, 1,000,000 people. They're looking for work, which they get the numbers of unemployed people because they're searching for work. But what happens? There's two things that I've noticed. One of them, of course, restaurants, constructions, they're not going to be looking for employees because they already have people working under the table. A very low wage compared to what they would pay a legal resident or a citizen. They don't have to provide health benefits. They don't have to provide any type of insurance. They just give them the money cash. It's a win-win. The people don't pay taxes, so they get more of that money. The companies, corporations, or anybody that is hiring illegals, they don't have to pay taxes on them. They don't have to pay L&I. They don't have to pay Social Security on them. They don't have to pay business employee tax or whatever, payroll tax and all this. They don't have to do that. So they save all that overage. And what it does is like it really destroys employment for actual residents and citizens in this country. People don't see it that way because they don't want to see it. But the truth is, that's how that works. And if you want to sit, probably all of you guys are on my side. But if anybody wants to sit here and tell me that I'm wrong, well, prove it. And I can tell you that this is happening. This is happening. I was even talking to my brother about this, and I was like, hey, you know what? I understand. Man, I need some more coffee. I understand. Vilma. Wilma! That sounds like freaking Fred Flintstone here. I was hoping she'd be in the kitchen, but she's not. Okay, just so you know, guys, if there's a little echo, this is a room and it's got closed doors and everything. So if she's in the kitchen, she can hear me and she can probably make me another cup of coffee. I don't want to leave you guys here hanging. But anyway, so that's how it looks like. Okay, let's see. Landscaping, roofing, doors, windows, siding, kitchen. Okay, so Salina, I will say this. Okay, if if people are illegal in this country, just so that everybody knows, if they are illegal in this country, they can get an ITIN number to start a business. Now, what's interesting is that I believe, I might be wrong, and you can don't quote me on this, but I believe that working permit only applies to employees. But if you start your own business, you don't need a work permit. That's what I understand. Okay, that's what I understand. I could be wrong, but that means that illegal immigrants can do their own business, like Pedro's landscaping, Pedro's painting, Pedro's construction. As long as Pedro is not considered himself an employee and it doesn't have employees, the business is legit. Now, I don't really know what was the logic of all of that, but that's how they get away with it. Okay, so they're not working illegally, technically, because they have their own business. And having their own business does not require that you have a permit to work. Now, the problem comes in when they try to put themselves as employees for the company. Now they're committing fraud, and they're giving themselves a felony by doing that. So technically, as long as the business owner does not put themselves as an employee, right? They just do their business, they pay their taxes to the city. They don't have to pay federal taxes apparently because they're not an employee. So it makes you wonder, so how does that business stay? If there is no employees being, you know, acknowledged in the company, if there's no employees being reported for a business, how can they stay a business? It blows my mind how that works. But you know, the thing is, you have to understand, for every job, every company, every business that hires an employee, okay, most companies, I think there's some companies out there that just can't afford to give all the benefits. But for most companies out there, they already do offer, okay, if I was to hire an employee, for example, if I was to hire an employee, okay, I'm going to pay that employee $16 an hour, okay, I have to pay that amount of money to LNI. And then I have to pay a certain amount of money to make sure that this person qualifies for unemployment. Now, the employee also pays a small fraction of that. It's kind of like unemployment insurance. You can see this in your payroll checks, okay? I don't have one with me, but I know that this is what I've seen. Let's see, operator failure. What happened? Oh, the coffee? I don't know what you're saying. Robert, what we talking mess about me here? That's why we have quality learning centers. That's right, man. I'm glad I saw Robert's name. He made me pause so I can read the Lone Wolf's comment. I hope that you guys are learning something, guys. I'm trying to give you some learning points, okay? So with that being said, you know, this whole immigration thing can be a big problem. And when people think, oh, Mexicans or Hispanics, right? They call us all Mexicans, even though we're not Mexican. They tell us, oh, you know what? The Hispanics, illegal immigrants, they're coming in here. Thank you, Travis. Travis is leering. He's leering something. It's throwing me off, man. I can't be reading comments and thinking about what I'm saying right here, guys. Give me a break. Stop messing with me. So I forgot what I was at. I know the information, but I forget where I was stopped. All right, so and then people say that illegal immigrants are stealing American jobs. And you're like, no, they're not. No, they're not. They're not stealing jobs, right? If you think about it, they're not stealing jobs. But are they stealing jobs? Well, let me see what Cutting Edge has something here, I think. Brother, it's hard for me to read it on the regular lettering. If a company don't report a paycheck for an employee, that means the company can jump paying taxes to the government because it's not reported in the computer. Yeah, sure, it's not reported in the system. So, okay, you jumped ahead of me. But are they really stealing our jobs? Well, technically they are. Not because they come in and say, hey, gringo, give me your job. No, not that way. But in a way of, think about all the benefits for an employer, right? Now, there, what is it? The E-Verify? Is that social? What is that? What is the name of the system that you have to verify if a Social Security is legit to work? To qualify people that are applying for work. Somebody put it in the comment in there, see if I can catch it. Think about this. Okay, so benefits to the employee. The employee doesn't need a work permit. The employee doesn't pay federal taxes, doesn't pay Social Security, doesn't pay any of those things when they work under the table. So they can afford E-Verify. Yeah, Tony, thank you, Tony. I know it's something like that. They used to have it for like 20 something years ago, and I haven't heard of it, because of everything that we see today. But so they can afford to take a big pay cut because they don't have to pay any of the taxes at all. Okay. Now the benefit for the employer, the benefit is what? Well, number one, they don't have to pay that tax for the employee. They don't have to pay L&I for that employee. They don't have to pay for insurance for that employee. They don't have to report them, as Kardinate says. They don't have to report them as an employee. They don't have to report that income. Blah, 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 right? Everything is cost of doing business. So they can always write that off on their tax when they're doing their taxes quarterly. And so they have all these benefits. And especially when there is a charge of saying, okay, well, now you went from this amount of employees, which made you a small company, and now you go to this amount of employees, that puts you into mid-sized company, which means you have to pay more taxes according to the tax bracket, right? And there's a percentage that goes up. And so employers do save a lot of money, but it is illegal. It is very illegal. And I think that's why Americans don't get hired. Now, I'm not gonna make 100% excuses for Americans because there is lazy ass people. I work with many of them. Okay. Hey, Paul Salsi in the house. I know you guys are still muds and you guys can control it, but just be kind. Okay. Don't be blocking people. Let's see. Don says piece of work construction just pay same or less than 30 years ago. Yeah, right. Well, if they keep hiring illegal immigrants to do their jobs, it's very, very sad. But the people, the corporations, companies, they abuse it. I mean, let's be honest. It is a form of slavery. I know it's not the slavery that we had back in our history, but it is a form of slavery. And thank you, Carlos. And then people have to understand that you have to be realistic about it. Okay. So now, with that being said, touching in on the illegal immigration, touching in on the why the good and the bad happens, why God is in control of everything good and bad. You guys have a little bit of information to kind of understand where we at in the world today. Now, with that being said, Burning 47 says indentured servants. Yeah, okay, sure. We'll do that one. I'm going to forget what that is. I'm not going to remember to say those exact words for them. But I think it's kind of a slave mentality. They want to pay less to illegals instead of paying what's fair for Americans. Okay. Should Don Lemon do some time? Oh man, you know what? That would be sweet justice. That will be sweet justice. Yeah, you need cream and sugar, Dennis. No, no, Robert. Listen. All right, we're gonna sidetrack here. Um, there is some drinks. I know it's horrible, but there is some soda drinks that you cannot get in the States, and I love that here. So I number one, even though just so you guys know, okay, this little guy has some muscles, okay, but I still have a lot of fat, and with that fat comes a lot of sugar, and so I try to keep my sugar levels down, okay. So let just throw that out there. So if I drink my coffee straight with no sugar, no cream, which when I go to the mall, maybe I'll order. I think there's a Starbucks at the mall, so I don't know if they let me film, but I'm gonna try to sneak something in there, okay? But we're gonna go in there and I'm gonna go ahead and order a special coffee probably, and we'll see how much it costs. I can almost guarantee you it costs the same as the coffee in the United States. Lou Hawk says, "You 5'5", Dennis." No, brother, I'm 6'1". Now, when I have my shoes on, I'm 6'2". Okay, and yeah, I am. I'm an average in America, but here I'm a little bit above average. There is still taller people than me, of course. I'm not the tallest guy here. There is a lot of taller people than me here, but for the most part, everybody's below my shoulder. Okay, my shoulder and below. That's what every Honduran looks like to me. Uh, I just don't want to put like friends and family. I don't want people getting doxxed over here in Honduras by other morons. But yeah, no, I'm not a little guy, guys. I don't need to see or hear the illegal fool. Okay, Sandra, thanks for stopping by. Have a nice day. Uh, hey, nowadays, guys, they allow illegals like me to travel from the States down to Honduras and then travel from Honduras back to the States. Yeah, that's how illegal I am. I'll be back in 2.5 weeks, my friends. 2.5 weeks. I'll be back in my home studio slash bedroom. I got all my setup. Oh my God. I'm so spoiled, guys. I'm so spoiled. Um, I'm telling you, there's some things that I wish that I had that I don't have. Um, I'm a big dreamer, so I'm all over the place. But anyway, so let's go ahead and get back down to the nitty gritty. You guys heard the rundown from illegal immigration, the what causes Americans to lose their jobs. Um, we're gonna go to this Somalis scam. I wanted to show you guys the live of the hearing. I'm sure you guys probably saw it already, but I'm having issues with it. Let me see. I'm going to show you guys so you guys can see what I was going to show you. Uh, so that's what I was going to show you guys. I don't think that you're going to be able to get um, good audio on it, but I had that ready so that I can show you guys. And my headphones are not working, and then I wouldn't be able to control the audio so that you guys don't hear the echo, etc. That says Don says, "Damn, bring that Honduran weather back with you, bro. It's raining. It's raining. Let me see. Well, there's a house behind me here. I can't tell. They just built a house here for one of the family members. But let's see. Lanyon in the house. Good morning. Gary says, first it's Mexicans, now other people. Well, Mexico is the first southern border country, but Guatemala, Honduras, Salvador, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama, everybody going down the Brazil, Venezuela, Colombia, blah blah blah. They all come streaming to the United States of America. But now that the border is closed, though, I believe that has stopped and is causing Mexico some trouble because Mexico is another one of those big countries. And since Claudia Sheinbaum, their president, believes in socialism, well, everybody wants to move to Mexico now. And I wonder how that's happening because the last that I heard was Mexico shut down the southern border and did not allow anybody even seeking asylum. Isn't that interesting? Even Mexicans are now acting like they are Americans. Well, anyways, with that being said, Somalis have been, you guys already know this, criminalizing ICE agents. They've been saying that they are over there, the Gestapo. I tell you what, the name sounds pretty cool. The Gestapo. It sounds cool. I like it. I like the name of the Gestapo. And then they go around, and there's like a bunch of like Mexicans, Asian descent, and blacks, and a couple of white guys over there. And then the people start yelling at them, "You Nazis!" It's just like, okay, what the hell are you talking about? What are you talking? Who are you calling a Nazi? Like seriously, who are you calling a Nazi, man? This like all these ICE agents, they're mostly minority people doing their job to protect American citizens. Okay, listen. the more illegal immigrants, I know you don't want to believe this. The more illegal immigrants we get rid of from the United States, the more the legal immigrants will have a chance to a better life. And that includes the Americans. Yeah, it includes all of us. We will all have a better life for it. ¿Qué hubo, mi primo? Dinos a esos burros. Compárame. Compadre Remy. I'm going to call you compadre, okay? I'm going to call you compadre. Then this is my favorite comedy show. Budget go down the drain. What happened to the stage set? ADR, man, for real, bro. I know, man. I know. It's okay. Well, 2.5 weeks, I'll be able to go back to the States and get to my beautiful backdrop that I have put in the house, and then I will have my lights and everything. Hey, you know what? But we're still here live from Central America. So there you go. That's a lot of money to come down here. I'll tell you that right now. It's a lot of money. All right. And it's not easy also to have money to be able to be here at all as well. First time I'm seeing your hair. Oh, it's because I forgot my brush. I know. I already been here for 3 days, but I forgot my brush. I have to go buy a brush for my hair because it gets like really, like, you know, just it's not easy to brush. Okay, so I need a specific brush, and yeah, I just got out of the shower, nice and fresh, so everything is smelling good. I'm feeling fresh. I don't have the AC on right now because I don't need it. It's actually a little bit cool down here right now. So it's all good. Let's see. Before we continue to Somalis, Chadwick says that the humanizing language, like calling people Nazis, is designed to give justifications for the violence. Yes, absolutely. They want to enact on people. Yes, absolutely, 100%. And this is a Marxist. Wilma, me hace un favor, por favor. Si me da otra taza de café. Me hace otra tacita. Por favor, es que no, no me puedo levantar de aquí. Gracias, mamá. All right, guys, I got Wilma to get me a second cup of coffee. I know I should yell it out like Fred Flintstone. Wilma, but it's Vilma in Spanish, but you know what I mean. Hola, Catracho, Costa Pobre, what's happening? ¿Qué pasa, muchacho? Good to see you guys, man. Hey, thanks for stopping by, man. I know the feed here is not gonna be the best. Ok, yo creo que iba a comer. ¿No le ha hablado Joel? Porque supuestamente íbamos a comer una sopa ya, pero.
Y estoy haciendo pollo frito, arroz y, bueno, una ensalada de papa, pero sin huevo, porque no tengo huevo.
¿No tiene ensalada de pepino, repollo?
No.
Trate de usar menos tomate porque eso inflama la piel. Hold on, guys. We're talking about lunch food here.
Y hay una ensalada de verduras.
No, pero eso no es igual. No, de las frescas nada más.
Ok.
Bueno, pues haga lo que usted vaya a hacer y yo le voy a mandar un texto a Joel. Gracias, Vilmita. So here in this family, just I heard burritos. Rush, babe, how are you, baby? It's so good to see you. You know what? I think I told you guys before. I'm going to tell you something. This is just my members will understand this, okay? The people that have been with me since the beginning, and those who believe what I say, you guys know what I'm feeling. I'm going to tell you something. I am very happy being here in Honduras, okay? And even though I am in Washington, and then I have you guys are from Idaho, Tennessee, from Texas, from Florida, New York, even though you guys are all over the states, right? Being down here, like I can't explain my emotional feelings. Excuse me, but for some reason I just like I miss you guys. I don't know what that means. Like it doesn't compute. And Chicago says compa. It's so weird. Like I know if I'm in Washington and I am not with you guys because you guys are in different states and all that stuff, being down here in Honduras, it's like I'm not there with you. You know what I mean? Like it's so weird. I don't know. And plus, uh, the distance. I guess it's up here. I know how far it is. Been to Copan? Yes. I'm actually gonna show you guys some pictures from that here. For everybody that's a member, you guys will see the pictures. I'm gonna do a premiere, and I'm gonna have some video footage of that. Now, just so you know, you cannot fly drones. Coyote, oh, welcome to the chat, my friend. Mind speak, liberty for all. Que pasa, way? Hey, man, I'm over here right next to your country, brother. I am right next to El Salvador. I'm down here in Honduras. Oh, having a good time. I can't believe it. I can't believe that I'm missing you guys. I think that there is probably a way that I don't know. I don't know how this would work. I don't know how that would work. I think there's probably a way that I can actually get my second account in here. Anonas, yeah. I just have some granadillas. They brought some granadillas from Salvador, but they were already like ripe, like very ripe. So there's not that much water inside of them. So you kind of just crack the edge of it, and then you just you suck the sack of little seeds. Let's see. All right. Let's see. Dennis looks younger with his hair down. I get all the hair back here, but everything here is gone. So don't get too excited, Rush babe. Yeah, that's just the way it is. When I run for governor, I might have to put a toupee, a little some fake hair with a great, just to get some people to vote for me. We'll see how that goes. The hell, Dennis let his hair down. Everybody notice. Yeah, I'm hoping that this here in a few years is going to be at least down here. Okay, there is a length that I want, and yes, there is more conditioner that goes with it. Coming forward, says Rush. So we're gonna send it this way. All right. Yeah, I like it here. I like it here. It in winter is great. In the summer it sucks. It feels really hot. But anyways, the topic is we're talking about it. We're going to talk about illegal immigration and some ice in the house. I gave a little bit of perspective on God's, how we think good and bad. Why do we blame God and why do we not understand why things happen? And also we're touching on illegal immigration, which by the way we are going to go in once those ripple curtains. So they're not, just so you know, they're not wrinkled. They're not wrinkled. Yeah, they're not wrinkled. It's just it doesn't look that good on the camera, but they're not wrinkled. They have a design on them. But anyways, okay, let's see what else we got. Chat says, what does okay? Rush, baby. Hey, sweetheart, says Robert. Robert's always sweethearting all the ladies in the chat. Sister Trinity probably didn't get my message. Eisman says that I see it on here. Eisman says that the hair is the topic. You guys are awesome, dude. Can you show us around? I might show you around if I'm doing a live outside. But the lives when I get good internet outside, members only, will get to see all that. Dennis is an absolute legend. Double tap if you haven't already. Thank you, Lunchbox. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate all of you guys. Man, I'm serious. Like I can honestly say that I want to live in Honduras so bad, but man, I miss you guys. It's crazy. Like I will always have you, right? If I'm always live, but being that I'm not in the United States, I actually miss you guys. I don't know how many times I'm gonna say that, but I actually do. You go, Robert Black. You see all that? You see all that yellow in there? It's gonna get stuck right here. So if you guys want to clown on my yellow teeth, go for it. All right, let's get serious, a little serious. Um, Minnesota, I believe Christy Knowles is actually going on the field with these people. Let's see. You guys are not gonna let me talk, are you? All right, boy. Okay, you know what? Forget it. We're gonna improvise, and I'm gonna allow you guys to ask me some questions about here. Let's see. Boy Scout says, heard that Honduras beauty standards are on another level. Now, see, on the phone that I'm doing a live right now, I don't have a SIM card. I don't have a service on. So I think what I'm going to do is like when I go out and I have, because I put it on this one, okay, the one that I'm monitoring on. I'm putting it on this one, and right now I'm in the house Wi-Fi. So when I go outdoor, I'm going to go ahead and go live with this one, and then I'll go ahead and show you guys, okay? I'll show everybody, but there is a specific video that's going to be just for members only, okay? Let's see. La Fala, you won't find me in Honduras. I would be lost. If you guys ever want to come to Honduras, let me know, okay? And then we can meet. We can do some stuff together over here. We'll see how that goes. Let's see, Boy Scout, my fault, bro. I didn't mean to get you off topic. Nah, man, I love it. If you guys got questions about my country, I love it. And you notice how I say my country, because this is where I was born. It will always be my country. But my loyalty is America first, United States first. That's when I did my oath as an adult. My oath here in this country is as a child. It still, carries weight. You skip the comments, says Doc. Was it you, Doc? Well, there's some comments that are being held, guys. Hey, Prince. Let's see. No, Doom says the hell. Dennis is. Oh, no, that's it. Yeah, if you guys, there's some comments that are being held. I'm not reading those. That's why it's hiding. See, you wrote a comment that says, "Are you transitioning?" And see, and YouTube is going to block you automatically. Okay, so you have to be careful on the words that you use. And no, I'm not going to save your ass from that. YouTube might be right, like that one. Are you transitioning? No, there will be no transitioning, my friend. Hair can go as long as it can for men and women. And that doesn't mean you're transitioning. I still have a and a couple of that you will not see, but they're still there, my friend. All right, let's go ahead. Get into the topic. Get away. Get out of here. Okay. All right, I guess that's the last comment. All right, Minnesota. Christy Noam is actually with ICE agents on the ground, on the field. Let's see, you're supposed to be on a hamaca and relaxing. I gotta make money, brother. I gotta make money. So I gotta get the views. I gotta get the super chats. I gotta get all that stuff, my friend. Being down here doesn't mean the bills wait at home. Every time somebody goes on a trip, you gotta make sure all your bills are paid off. So just so you guys know, personally, okay, I'll give you a little personally, some facts about my personal life right now. Before I came here, number one, this is not a planned trip. This is a trip that happened overnight. One of my brothers is visiting here in Honduras, and he is visiting here. And just so you know, we have not been in Honduras in over 35 years together. So, oh snap! Oh, my speak, Robert. I forgot, man. I forgot about that, bro. Oh, my speak. We'll come back to you, bro. We'll come back to you. Man, he's gonna go broke. He's gonna go broke. All right, look. So it was not a planned trip. Okay, it was not a planned trip. It's my brother's here. We haven't been in this country together for over 35 years. So it's very special because we want to be here. Both of us, Honduran born, want to be here together as brothers and we're just looking out for each other. You know, like right now he's with his wife visiting his wife's family side. But you know, he wanted me to be here, so he sent me most of the ticket, most of the money for the ticket, and I paid the rest of the ticket. But before I came here, um, I uh, I paid all my bills. I paid, you know, electricity, the car, you know, credit card, every bill that I had to pay, it's gone, and I used all of my money to pay all that stuff in there. Um, and so I came here with very little money, but it's okay. It's just, you know, my family takes care of me here anyway. I also don't want to be a burden to them either. So the deal was when they come back to Honduras, because they will come to the United States once I'm there. They'll probably come back. They'll come and visit the United States like 2 weeks after I get back to the States, and then I'm gonna go ahead and drive them around, and I'm gonna go ahead and show them. And so it's kind of like what do you call the, you know, tit for tat. You know, you a favor for you today, a favor for me tomorrow. Okay. Let's see. I know Earshot wants me to stay here, but guess what? No, I'm coming back just to annoy you, Earshot. Let's see. Brian says that I think that's awesome, Dennis. Man, it's fantastic, bro. I love my brothers so much. Even the one that I told you guys about, the, you know, my childhood stories and all that stuff. I love them so much. It doesn't matter any good, bad that has happened in our past. You know, we have forgiven each other for everything, and we just, that's it. We are in our separate ways, but you know, we love each other as a family. $500, mind speak. You man. So Robert is reminding me. So I did a live while the Seahawks were playing, and I said, guys, if I forget, remind me when you see mind speak come into my live that I am officially making a $500 bet that the Seahawks are gonna spank the 49ers. And so they did, my friend. You were not on that live, so you're off the hook. Don't worry about it, brother. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. 500 buckaroos, Robert. Can you believe it? This guy is not going to pay up. Guys, if you are here, I know there's not that many of you guys here, but if you guys go into the description, the only thing that I don't have a Cash App. I know many people tell me I should have one, but unfortunately, some illegal person probably used my information and I can't get a Cash App for some reason. But I do have a PayPal account, and you guys can submit help through there if you want to send money that way. Okay? Thank you for the super chat, Cutting Edge. The biggest question I have is why don't they hand over the criminals they have in prisons? So that is actually the question that we all ask. You know, yep, go Hawks. Um, and it doesn't matter, bro. I'm gonna tell you something. I don't fear that Democrats are gonna win again because Trump is doing so bad. I fear that Democrats are gonna win because we have a lot of mental retards out there. We have a lot of mentally ill people that they don't know what the hell is going on. That's what I fear. I fear we have so much mental unstable people that they will vote for Democrats. Like look at this in New York, here in Seattle. Well, here in Seattle, I still think I'm at home. I am home, but it's not my home. In Seattle, they voted in a socialist Democrat, which we're gonna say this every live. The Democrats is the new socialist. The new socialist has three ideologies: Marxist, communist, socialist. Those three things are the new socialist party. And that's what Democrats are going with. Why do you hear the names of Nazis and bigots and all this stuff? That is a communist and a Marxist tactic. They're using that to confuse people And unfortunately, they're going after the mentally weak, the more gullible. Thanks for the super chat, Cotton Edge. I look at the UK and the control the radicals have within it. It all makes perfect sense. They are training for a CW. Yeah, man. To death. We need military now. I'm gonna say this, man. The president. Watch this. I know we'll get to the Somalis, but watch this. The president of El Salvador, okay, has done exactly what the president of Honduras did before Nayib Bukele. Think about this. Before Nayib Bukele, the president of Honduras did exactly what Nayib Bukele is doing in El Salvador. Now, I'm going to point out a couple of things in there, okay? El Salvador, I didn't go there. My brother went there with my family. Everybody else went in there. They went there before I came to Honduras. They told me that the roads are still crap, but they noticed the difference in El Salvador. Like, it seemed cleaner. It seemed a lot better taken care of than the area of Honduras at the border, sort of. And so they said that the roads were not that great, that they were kind of shitty, to be honest, that none of that has any difference. It looks like Honduras, but they noticed crime. There is no crime. And if there is, it was so minimal that they didn't notice it. And so, here it is. Nayib Bukele is called a dictator. He's called an authoritarian. He's called this and that. Let me move the table back. Okay. They call them all these names right now, but Salvador is the safest country on the earth, right? This is what the statistics say. Now, Honduran president did exactly what Nayib Bukele is doing, except something happened. See, the president of Honduras, he actually stood up for the people, and he stopped cartels from bringing drugs to Honduras. Now, you guys will hear that the Honduran president, Juan Orlando Hernandez, said to the Americans, we're going to bring cocaines and we're going to stuff them up the Americans' noses. That's a lie. He never said that, okay? Just so you guys know. He actually had a good relationship with President Biden. Now, we know Biden was not in office. The guy was just a weekend at Bernie's type of guy. And, he made this relationship with them to help the United States and fight against the the cartels from Venezuela. So, before he became president, and I'm going to tell you how he started. Before he became president, he was Speaker of the House, okay? And there was a general in the Air Force of Honduras. He shut down 3 small planes. Why did he shut them down? He shut them down because transponders were off. They were not communicating with us. And they have received intel that these are actually bringing drugs into Honduras. So he shut them down. Now, the president back then, his name is Zelaya, he fired the general. He fired him because he shut down these 3 planes. He didn't care that there were drug planes, shut them down. So Juan Orlando Hernandez, which is the Speaker of the House, he actually defended him. And then he ran for president. When he ran for president, he stopped those planes from coming from Venezuela to Honduras. And no small planes, by the way, came through Honduras the way that they were being before. Now, you have to understand something. The Liberal Party in Honduras, they are social. They're like Democrats. They are socialist. But the socialist today, as I mentioned earlier, has 3 ideologies that they're making the socialist party now. And that's Marxism and communism. Let me tell you this. Watch this. President Orlando Hernandez gets into office. He stops all these drug dealings or whatever. And then his brother gets accused. And then another military, who knows, maybe they are guilty. Okay, I can't defend the brother or the general or the other military guy. But I can defend Juan Orlando Hernandez because I know what he stands for. Okay, he never acknowledged Venezuela as a dictator as the president. He didn't do that. He didn't do that. He denied him. He knew he was a dictator and was harming the Venezuelan people. Now, he supposedly had a good relationship with Biden and the administration, right? But guess what? This is how it breaks down. Garland comes out, and I've shown a lot of people this already, but Garland comes out and says, the president of the United States, I'm sorry, the president of Honduras is guilty of being a narco drug lord, and is doing all this blah, blah, blah. And the president's like, wait, what? What did you get that from? And what happens? In Honduras, the news reporter, Salvador Narrala, okay, who ran for president in this election in November, he was given information from the socialist communist, Xiomara, and the wife of Zelaya, the ex-president that ran 2 terms in Honduras. The president, Xiomara, right, the wife, she gave information, or the Zelaya household, right? They gave information, kind of like Nancy Pelosi leaking information. They leaked some information to him, and he grabbed this and he took it out as a fact, and he ran on it like CNN. He ran on it and says, I got proof the president of Honduras is a fraud. He's a dictator. He is a drug lord, and blah, blah, blah. And so he ran in with this fake news, and at the end of the day, he couldn't prove anything. There was nothing factual. There was nothing physical. There was no proof at all. And so what do? They still criminalize him. They still criminalize him. They threaten to kill his wife. They threaten to kill his family. Now you have to understand something. Communists is what they do. They kill their political opponents. When the people speak, they destroy democracy. They want people to feel like they voted, like they had a voice, but they don't have a. For communists, people don't matter. As long as they're in power, it doesn't matter what happens to the people. So I'm against this 100%, right? So he turns himself in so that his family doesn't get killed or stays out of harm. And then he turns himself into the United States of America. Of course, the Biden administration prosecuted him. Everything's Democrats. Everybody was against him. They have no physical proof. They have no verifiable witnesses. And the only people that testified against how convenient President Juan Orlando Hernandez were actual drug dealers, members of the cartel. Now you're going to tell me that you're going to take hearsay from cartel dealers? Or do you want to have some facts, some proof, something factual? They couldn't find anything. So they make up this book. Hey, Janice. Hey, Pelican. They make this booklet. Let me tell you something. If I was a drug dealer, a cartel drug dealer, a drug lord, don't use my name on this damn booklet. You can keep track of shit. That's fine. But my name is going to be Code Eagle, Code Blue, Code something. Don't, and so they have this booklet, right? Written by hand, by the way, right? From an actual cartel drug dealer, okay? By the way. And he writes in here, Juan Orlando Hernandez, on this day, at this time, received this amount of cocaine. How very interesting that they actually put, ya está, okay. How interesting that they actually put his whole name, actual date and time when these planes will come into Honduras, which, by the way, as I mentioned earlier, there was no planes coming from Venezuela into Honduras. Very interesting. Now I'm going to point something out to you. Ever since President Donald Trump started bombing drug boats coming out of Venezuela, drug overdoses in America have dropped over 27%. How does that happen? Wait a minute, what? So there is no more planes full of drugs coming from Venezuela into Honduras, and yet drugs never stopped flowing into the United States of America. Now I'm going to put a little bit of detail onto this story. The communist Xiomara, who took over when the president of Honduras, Juan Orlando Hernandez, gave himself up to the United States to be prosecuted, she took over. And the first thing she did, recognized. They're so stupid. She recognized Nicolas Maduro is the legitimate president of Venezuela. I hope you're paying attention, because the president, Juan Orlando Hernandez, didn't acknowledge. But the one that came in did. And she went and took pictures with him. She didn't accomplish anything in Honduras until the people started bitching and complaining and said, wait a minute. Wait a minute. You said Juan Orlando was a traitor. He was a drug lord. But he did the opposite of what you said. We saw infrastructure go up. Crime went down. Gangbangers went down. Highways rebuilt. Bridges reconstructed. Malls built up. Businesses popping left and right. The economy started going back up. They got rid of him. And he did exactly what President Nayib Bukele from El Salvador did. And the reason why President Donald Trump pardons him is because the Democrats, which, by the way, let's not be stupid, they are the new socialist party, which includes communists, Marxists, and socialists all in one. No, ahí así, tráigame aquí, pues, tráigame aquí. Dame la comida aquí, Vilma. Sí, aquí tráigamela. I'm going to show you guys what Vilma made for me. Okay, thank you. Gracias, Mama. This is what Vilma made for me, just so you guys know. So she made me a little salad, which I won't be able to eat the tomatoes. I love tomatoes, but tomatoes, I have rheumatoid arthritis on my hands, on my joints, and tomatoes bring a lot of pain into my hands. He made some chicken with a special adesso sauce, some rice, and some potato salad that she made. So this is my lunch, my friends. Just wanted to let that out there, share it with you guys. But, you know, President Donald Trump pardoned Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez because he said that he noticed that they were doing to him, to the president of Honduras, what they're doing to Trump. So Trump understands that there is something going on, something that is not right. Now, I'm going to give you this out of the little testimony from, and I'm going to put this food right here so you guys can get hungry with me, because it's not fair that I get to be hungry and not you guys. Okay? So there is this thing to where, like, okay, so Democrats are trying to destroy Trump. Why? Because he's destroying the drug flow coming into our country. He is fighting to defend the United States of America and the people. And that's not good for Democrats because they want to stay in power. You know, what I don't understand is, like, you know, you have a good salary, you got a good payment. Don't you want to be the hope of the people? Don't you want to be remembered as a hero, as a Democrat or a Republican that fought for the people, that you made something worth of being remembered in history? We fixed the economy. We took care of our American citizens. We made this country strong. We want you to keep it strong. They don't want that. They just want greedy money. Money, money, money. And it's not good money. Not all money is good money, just so you guys know. Okay? Hey, you know what? Father God, thank you for this food. Thank you for the hands that made it. May there always be food at this house. And may there always be food in the areas where hunger has struck. Father, I give you thanks and I bless this food in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. See, now I pray for my food. This is the way I pray for my food. I always pray that the people that made it are blessed, that the house is always blessed with it, that there are always food in this house. Bring God's blessing and peace upon the house that you visit, and they welcome you and they treat you, okay? Now, I'm going to tell you this. She is a servant in the house. She's not a slave. She gets paid more than average in the house. The family where I stay, they're business owners, okay? Now, I'm not saying they're rich, but they're business owners and they can afford some of these things. And they're Christians. So she gets very well treated. She gets treated as part of the family, not as a servant. So just so you guys know, okay, that is the actual title of the position. And it's not to be racist or any type of enslavement. That is exactly what she is. You guys can give her whatever name you want, but look at her. This is what she did for me. I didn't ask her for it. She just did it because she knows she's taking care of the guest in this house. So, with that being said, there's a little bit of history of why this socialist communist is a horrible thing to happen. And so I tell you this little bit of story, which some of you guys have heard before, because now we got Mondani in New York, and now we have in Israel. We have the same retards running in government. They are going to destroy our cities. They're going to destroy our states. This socialist Democrat that we have as mayor in Seattle, she doesn't want to clean up the homeless anymore. She doesn't want to clear out tents. She wants to just let them be there. She doesn't want to address the problem. Now, she wants to raise taxes on the American people. Now, I always get this comment, right? Like, oh, why are we sending money to Israel? Well, here's the thing, my friend. It's not about that we're using billions of dollars. That's not the problem. The problem is, what are we using billions of dollars in? Okay? If we give more money to the homeless, that's not going to stop them from being homeless. It's not. What we need to do is make sure they're not doing drugs. We need to fix our system. We need to make sure that taxes are low enough for people to be able to afford things. Because you have to understand something. When they raise taxes with the excuse that it's only for the rich people, the middle class and up, when the gas goes up, it doesn't just affect the middle class or rich people. It affects specifically the poor people. The poor people. They are the ones that can't afford it. And when they say they're taxing property taxes, for example, for middle class and rich people, okay, there's a lot of poor people that have inherited their houses. They now have to pay taxes on these properties. And then they lose their house. And then they go homeless. That is a communist thing. That is a communist tactic. This food is calling me. Let me taste it and see if it's any good. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Let me see this little salad here. Just so you guys know, there's a difference on the way food tastes in Honduras and the way it tastes in the States. Oh my goodness. Maybe I should have waited. All right. It's so good. So listen. So you guys can make the potatoes, you guys can make the cabbage salad, and you can make the fried chicken and the rice. But there is a flavor that only in Honduras it tastes like this. I guarantee it. It does not taste like this in the States. And that, my friends, is what I miss about my country. See, food is part of my culture. And even though there's restaurants out there that supposedly cook this kind of food, it's not the same. It's not the same. Very rarely do I see a Latin cuisine restaurant that actually hits the flavor as I remember here in Honduras. Okay? Give me 1 second. Let me message my brother that I'm already eating. Let's see. Ya estoy almorzando. Just so that he knows. I don't want him to wait for me. Okay. Now, with that being said, okay, we're going back to the Somalis now. Okay, we already addressed the socialists and the Democrat and all this other stuff. Okay, fine. Yes. Okay, let me address some of you guys' comments. Let me see. Let me give you guys a chance. Doom says socialism works maybe in countries where the average citizen is upstanding, i.e., Scandinavian. Socialism only works in small areas where money is not that important, and I'll explain why. That lunch looks delicious, Janice. It is amazing. It is very, very good, home cooked, and it's oh my God, it's so good. It really is. Hold on. Mm, mm, mm. It's very good, guys. Very good. Let me put this down here. I know I shouldn't. I should eat it while it's hot, but I want to pay attention to you guys. All right, let's see. The food is very good. Thank you. Fax C4. Eat and read chat, Dennis. All right, eat and read chat. Okay, I'll take that. I'll take that because that way I can. You guys are like, you guys are awesome. Thank you for that, Tanya. Appreciate you. Let me remove my tomatoes because I can't eat the tomatoes. All right, let's see. The closer you get to the equator, the better the food gets. Maybe. C4 is, hold on, my brother's texting. Yo estoy, te voy a alcanzar a almorzar también. Okay. Dice, pero yo solo he visto la primera. Okay. Okay. They're inviting me to the movie theater. Okay, that's fine. Okay, let me go ahead and read some comments. C4 says, I'm half Mexican, Honduran. Half Mexican, I get the feeling. Tanya, Robert, you got that right. Everything is natural up here. It poisons. It's poison. Thank you. Mm-mm-mm. Jazz or Jason, Teofimo Lopez versus Shakur Stevenson. I don't know what the hell that is. If he's boxing, I don't know, brother. I don't watch that. 50-50 fight leaning with Tio. Oh, there you go. It's a fight. Okay. Maybe UFC or boxing. I'm just glad to see everybody. Yeah. Thank you, Tanya. Yeah. I know I was going to talk about Somalia, or illegal Somalis. But I like this. This is like a like a mukbang, right? A maka maka mat one not two. Aloha from Hawaii. Aloha, brother. Big shaka for you. Robert's too cold with the weather. Oh man. Man, love you guys. Appreciate that love, man. What the hell is this? 36 people on this live? Oh my God, that's pathetic. But you know what? What's not pathetic? The right people are on the live. Okay? Peace to you as well. Cobham, too early for yuca. No yuca. And it's never too early for yuca. Yeah. No, this one is a pretty typical lunch. But I will say this is not food for the poor. This is not food for the poor. Food for the poor is always beans and tortillas, maybe some rice. Yeah. We're with you, Robert. Love you, brother. Craig says we really don't care what happens in Honduras. So talk about your own failed state. Now, see, guys, that's why only members will be allowed to watch my content from Honduras. Craig is a subscriber, I think, but he's not a member. You look so much happier eating home cooked than fast. Man, absolutely, man. 100. MindSpeak says, hey, Dennis, if you go out and can't get money from the ATM, keep calm. Don't act like the other guy. For real, bro. For real. So, my disclaimer, if you guys don't know what the hell he's talking about, he's talking about the guy that went to Somalia and said, oh man, this is a great place. And we look at it around, and it's like, there's nothing great about the place. But, you know, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And then later, when he ran out of money and he tried to get some money, the guy, he couldn't get money out of the ATM and he just lost it. Oh my goodness. You guys have no idea. You have no idea. I missed your black and gold hat. I didn't bring it. I got my shut the hell up and my black American hat. Guatemala tamales, top pound wrapped up with banana leaves, says Travis. You know what? We went to the market yesterday before we went to visit my brother's in-laws, and we bought some. There's like this tamalitos, some. Oh my God, how do you say this in English? Anyways, in Spanish, montuca. It's a sweet corn tamal, okay, and then they had the banana wrapped tamales. And I wanted some of those so bad, but they didn't buy any, so I didn't eat any of those. But I will buy some, and maybe I'll when I do my live, maybe I'll have one and show you one of these days. At Craig, he's self-deported, but is coming back. Absolutely good. I will admit, I'm gonna get really fat down here because the food is so good. But you guys know, it's all worth it because this body needs a lot of food to move around. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Yeah, so good. I'm only eating because Tanya said that I could. All right. All right. We'll take a pause on the eating. Tanya, every country has their failed start. We will prevail. Amen. What you got to say about Lemon's church invasion? I will say, you guys already know about Don Lemon. He's I don't know what kind of name I can use in English, but he's retarded. All I have is retard. This guy has blamed the car victim only because he sees that it works. A lot of people, they need attention. We all need attention. Let's be honest. We all need attention. You guys make me feel special with your comments. Scott, welcome to the chat, my friend. Welcome to the chat. Craig says, I think it's rude when people eat on their lives. And that's why I didn't want to eat on there. But, my members love me so much that they encouraged me to eat and they don't want me to be punished having this great food right in front of me. See, I had this food on here so everybody can see it. And it worked. It made some of you guys feel guilty and sad for me and told me that I can eat. So I did. Now, as long as I have permission, I'm more than happy to do whatever I want to do. Okay. For example, I haven't smoked a cigarette in over 2 years. Okay. But even when I was a smoker, and you remember back in the days, they used to allow us to smoke in bars, in restaurants, right? There was a smoking section, there was a non-smoking section. Even though I sat in the smoking section with people that smoked, I know we're eating and we're smoking, and I don't mind people doing that in front of me. But I used to always ask, "Hey, is it okay if I light up a cigarette?" And everybody's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, sure, yeah, go ahead." But see, I didn't just automatically go. I never did that. I always ask, "Hey, is it okay if I have a smoke here in front of you?" Even though I know they smoke. I know they smoke. I always, is it okay if I light up? Hey, man, go ahead. People always been like that because they are polite and they are nice with me. So I appreciate it. If they said no, then I didn't. But they always have said yes. Let's see. Mind speak. What that guy did was wrong. There is a time and a place, and on a church is not a place. Absolutely. But mind speak, you have to remember this. Democrats, okay, and all these Looney Tunes that support Democrat right now. Remember what they did for COVID-19? Remember how they allowed thousands of people to go protest on the streets? And they were putting pastors in jail because they wanted to keep the church open for praise and worship. Even if the people came in and wore masks, there was nothing given to them as an okay for them to praise God and worship God. Did you know that the casinos didn't shut down for COVID-19? They didn't. They did what they called a 6 foot distance regulation. So they mapped everything on the floors and this and that. Nobody followed it. Nobody followed it. Okay. And I was a security guard. I used to have to go between people, on top of people, behind people, side people, under people. I was all over the place. And I'm not a little guy, bro. I'm sort of a little bit bigger than average guy. And and I think that's very stupid, but it really shows you where they're at. And what I try to show people on my lives is you have to understand there is a reason why we all think the way we think. And my experiences in my life is what pushed me to do this channel. It's what pushed me to come out here and speak. And I can't do this with a full-time job. I did for many months, but I can't do it. I just can't. You just need a lot of time. You got to have time for yourself. You got to have time to be able to research. You have to have time to listen to news. It's not just, I'm not a team. I don't have like 3 different people watching news. Okay, I want you guys to go ahead and give me notes on this. And then I can just read the notes and I can go off of them. I do have a skill. I can go off a topic without even knowing everything about the topic. But I do everything myself, okay? So I gotta say, all right? Let's see. Kevin says, Dennis, always gotta say I'm not a little guy. Stop it. We got eyes, fool. Well, I hope you can see that, fool. Little to the muscle in the camera. Just some people, bro. Kevin, if you want to be my experiment, we can go live together. I'm gonna suck you in the face and see if you get up. Let me punch. I'll let you punch me in the face. I'll let you punch me in the face, and then I'm gonna punch you in the face, and I want to see if you get up. Bro, I don't know if you think these are small hands, bro, but these are not small hands, bro. These are not small hands, bro. You will get knocked off out. All right, stop distracting me, man. They broke the FACE Act. It's a federal crime. That's right. I just find it ironic that, what was that, like a KKK thing? And it just happened, this gay black man goes over there and breaks that. I can't wait. I can't wait to see him in jail. I want to see him in jail. I want to see him in jail so he can stop acting stupid. Man, this coffee is cold now. It's not, it's tasty. Drinking cold coffee, not good. All right, cutting edge. He's putting capital letters so I can read better. This guy's going broke, sending me too many super chats. Let's see. Remember something, everyone. They don't care because they use the rules for radicals. They say we're fascists, but no, they want to be the fascist. They block streets in Minneapolis like cops. Yeah, they obstruct justice. They're committing felonies. I don't understand, man. Well, of course they don't watch my channel, but we have read the laws that protect the ICE agents and that tells Americans how to behave. And that was the what is it, the SNC what was it, 111 through 115, I think it was. It tells you how you will be punished if you're obstructing, impeding, any law enforcement. Okay, and federal ICE agents, they're law enforcement, and people like Tim and Tampon Tim Walz and Mayor Frey and other people in the Democratic Party. It's something that they don't tell the citizens. They don't tell them, hey, listen, you have the right to your freedom of speech and to protest peaceably, right? You can assemble peaceably. But they don't tell them, but if you go beyond that, if you start throwing stuff at agents, that's assault. If you spit on the agent, that's assault. You cannot lay your hands on agents, that is assault. If you get in their face and start yelling at them while they are doing an investigation, you will be arrested for obstruction. That is a felony. And these people don't warn them. Let me remind you that if you commit any of these felonies against a federal agent, you will pay dearly, for you will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And that is not pretty. Do you understand that? They need to tell them. They need to teach the citizens. They need to say, as much as they say my constituents, right? They call the illegal immigrants my constituents. They got to tell them the truth. They got to give them the consequences. And instead, they have encouraged them. They call them the Gestapo. Who the hell wants to protect the Gestapo? Nobody. They tell them to put their bodies on the line. They tell them to block ICE agents. They tell them nothing is going to be done until there's bloodshed. So what are people going to do? They're a little retard. They have no common sense. So they can't think about the consequences. And if the governors and the mayors are protecting them and telling them to do this, and they go out and do it, what's to encourage them to be good? Nothing. But they have full encouragement to be bad. Because if the governor says it, it must be right. If the mayor says it, it must be right. I have not seen anybody on the Democrat politician side condemning people saying, save a life, kill an ICE agent. I haven't seen anybody on the left say anything about it. Nobody. I haven't seen anybody. So common sense is not natural for a lot of people on the left. But I can say this. I got a little bit of hope because of John Fetterman, Senator Fetterman. I think his name is John, right? I think. But Senator Fetterman is a Democrat. And I love what he said. And that's what I stand for. I stand for that in this channel. Country first, party second. It's very simple. If you're an American and you want something good for your country, you got to see it that way. You cannot be a loyalist. A patriot will always be on top of a loyalist. Do we need loyalists? Sure, to a certain extent, but that loyalist needs to be like Fetterman. See, Fetterman is a loyalist to the Democratic Party, right? Maybe his whole family has been voting Democrat all this time. And that's why, that makes him a loyalist. You vote for that party because that's the party your grandparents voted for, your parents voted for, and you continue to do that. But at some point, you got to be a patriot. You got to be able to put your country first. And when you see the Democratic Party, which has been so corrupted lately, all they care about is illegal immigrants. And I know, man, you know what? I don't want to ask people here in Honduras. You know, I'm not a journalist, okay? I don't want to go ask people, put them on camera. Hey, so what do you think about, about Trump and, illegal immigrants? Because everybody that I have spoken to has told me that illegal immigrants bring shame to the Honduran people. Very interesting. But at the same time, if somebody here watches my video, I don't want these people being doxxed. You never know. It's a small world. And so I got to look out for myself and then other people, of course. Okay? Fort Lauderdale, Dennis is happy that illegals are getting deported. Illegals. You know what's funny here? There is a truth teller. That's right, baby. America first. When I came here, there was a couple of ladies that came pick me up at the airport. And somehow I slipped something about politics. And when they asked me, so what do you think about Juan Orlando Hernandez? And I said, oh man, I love that guy. He's innocent. That's what I'm talking about. They were so proud. They were so happy. He says, I am so happy to hear somebody has common sense. Something the left just has nothing. They have nothing. No common sense. No common sense. Let me see. I don't know. Maybe I should have. You know what? Let's take a listen. I don't know if you guys heard this already. But let's take a listen let's see if you guys can hear this. I'm not sure if you'll be able to, okay? Because of my earpiece, it might cancel the noise. I'm gonna play a clip here, and if you guys can hear it, let me know, okay? First of all, I need to make sure that there is audio. I need to close that. Okay, speakers for the laptop. Okay, let me know if you can hear this.
Really great to see you all. Good morning. Yesterday was a neat event for us. We had the profound honor and privilege to be the first American Speaker of the House to address the British Parliament, and it was a good day there. My counterpart, Speaker Lindsay Hoyle there in the House of Commons, invited me back in the fall to come and do that. And the idea was that we would sort of launch in a historic manner,
Luckily, let me hear it on my phone.
celebration in the cradle of democracy where it all began, and it was surreal in that regard. And I noted yesterday the special relationship that really does exist between our two nations and has. That relationship really grew and flourished and was forged in the great wars of the 20th century. And we have stood together because we have a common history and heritage. I reminded them. And
all right, there is a little bit of his, but that is actually that's the way that we're getting it from the feed.
And one that gave rise to the greatest, most free, most successful, most powerful, most benevolent civilization that the world has ever known. And that is what Western civilization represents. And I talked with our friends there about the necessity of us standing together to defend the foundations of Western civilization, because the West is imperiled today, and those foundations are endangered because there are rising powers like China and Russia. And that is one of the things we have to keep in mind as we do all of our work. So that was a little history yesterday, but the real history is being made here this week. And what do I mean by that? Well, you've heard reference that appropriations are on track. And for the third consecutive week now, House Republicans are going to advance another set, the final set of the FY26 appropriations bills. This week you'll see Defense, Homeland, Transportation, and Labor HHS. These bills are going to fund the Trump agenda and Republican efforts to restore peace through strength, to defend our borders, and to deport criminal illegal aliens, to rebuild America's infrastructure, and to make America healthy again. All laudable goals and things that we promised and things we're delivering on. Now, this is our final batch of appropriations bills for the fiscal year. There were a lot of people, and I think many in this room, that argued that this could not be done, that a regular appropriations process is a thing of the past, and it's been a couple of decades since this has happened. Critics said our margins were too slim to bring it back, to rebuild that muscle memory that I committed to when I became Speaker, and they said we had too many bills left to pass and too many disagreements left to reconcile. But I'm happy to report that all of those prognostications were flat wrong, and we've gotten it done. And the most significant sign of progress in these halls in years, House Republicans are restoring regular order. And it's important to the people that we represent, because this is the only way to have good fiscal sanity and responsibility and stewardship over taxpayer dollars, is to return to regular order. We're returning the appropriations process to a committee-led, member-driven approach, as it should be. We should not have the four corners, the top four leaders in the House and Senate in a back room, making pages and pages of decisions for the country. That's not the way it was supposed to work. And I've been doggedly determined to make sure that didn't happen. And this time it did not. Together, all 12 individual appropriations bills will provide full-year government funding without unrelated policy provisions. They will spend less than another continuing resolution. And it will continue to advance our America First agenda. Once we pass the final batch this week, Republicans will have finally replaced the last of any Biden-era spending levels with Trump-era spending levels. No more Biden and Pelosi negotiated budgets. We've turned that page and we are not turning back. Now, let's talk about the other big thing that will be happening. It's on the minds of everyone in the next week or so as tax season begins. Will Rogers, the famous actor and writer from Oklahoma, whose statue stands outside the House chamber where we all meet to do our interviews with you, he once observed this. He said, quote, "The only difference between death and taxes is that death doesn't get any worse every time Congress meets." Okay? For most of our history, his observation held true, which is why everybody kind of laughs at that. But it's not true anymore. Republicans have simplified the tax code. We have reduced the tax burden on families. We've advanced a policy agenda that puts working families first. And the proof is in the pudding, as we say. Next Monday, January 26th, tax season officially begins in America. For many people, it's a dreaded time. It's a moment that they don't celebrate. But this year, there's going to be lots of happy surprises. Thanks to our Working Families Tax Cut, tens of millions of American families are going to see bigger paychecks. They're going to see bigger tax refunds. And let me give you a couple of numbers real quick. $4,000. That's the value of the average tax refund for Americans this year. $100 billion. That's the estimated total of 2025 tax refunds for families. $10,000. The average increase in annual take-home pay for working families. Think of it. $10,000 is the average across the country. 15%. The average tax cut for families earning between $15,000 and $80,000 annually. How did we do that? We reduced federal taxes. We made permanent the doubled standard deduction. We instituted a $6,000 deduction for seniors, which will affect more than 50 million of them. We included no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. We boosted the child tax credit. We made permanent the paid leave tax credit. We expanded FSAs. We increased the adoption tax credit, and those just provisions for families. For business and industry, the tax season will be a boost to their bottom lines and their ability to grow, add more jobs, and expand facilities, etc. Our agenda supports Main Street over Wall Street, and we did that by making a 20% small business deduction permanent, doubling small business expensing to $2.5 million, providing child care tax credits to businesses, reducing paperwork burdens by increasing the 1099 reporting threshold, expanded opportunity zones with more than $100 billion in new investments in rural distressed areas, and we raised the death tax exemption for family farms. That's a lot of great policy. pro-growth policy the American people are going to see the great benefit of. We also included full expensing for new factories and domestic manufacturing improvements, full expensing for domestic research and development, 100% expensing for new capital investments in the U.S., no taxes on car loan interest for U.S. assembled vehicles, and the elimination of the de minimis exception for low-value commercial imports. Great policies, some things that we had been needing to do for a long time. And we got all that in the one big beautiful bill, the Working Families Tax Bill. We wrote that legislation for small business owners, the job creators in this country, and we wrote it and geared it for lower and middle class families. You know how the Democrats always say, oh, the Republicans only favor the billionaires. It's a joke. Go look at the facts. Everybody's going to see that. This was written for lower and middle class hardworking families in America. And they're going to benefit from that. And they're going to know who did it. As our chair reminded you about 5 times this morning, the Democrats voted against every bit of this. They voted to raise taxes, and they voted against all this great policy. The very people who suffered the most during the Biden years were lower and middle class families, and we are going to correct that. And all boats are going to rise. And that's why we're so excited about the year ahead, not just because of the celebration of the 2.5 century mark for the country, and not just because we have a faithful election season that we are very bullish about because of the record we're going to run on, but because everybody is going to be feeling the positive effects of that. Man, do the American people need it. I've just scratched the surface here on what our working families tax cuts will achieve. So over the weeks and months ahead, House Republicans will continue to promote the transformational opportunities and conservative victories that this legislation delivers for everybody. We're really excited about that. With that, I'll take a few questions.
No questions. No questions, but I do have, since it seems like the volume is okay, we are going to listen to Nick Shirley and officials testified on Minnesota. I think it's going to be fantastic. Now, I will still be on here with you guys so that we can continue to talk on the chat. There we go.
Dollars. That's $1 billion with B in false claims. Some high-profile cases in Minnesota include organizations and programs such as Feeding Our Future, Early Intensive Developmental and Behavioral Intervention, Housing Stabilization Services, and Integrated Community Supports. Now we're going to watch a video.
Video time.
It's welfare fraud. It's all about the daycare.
They estimate as much as $100 million a year is being stolen by shady daycare center operators.
So how much money are we talking about stolen from the American taxpayer?
Well in excess of $1 billion.
Ripping off state-run programs intended to feed low-income kids, house the disabled, and provide services to autistic children.
Where are the children at? Do you know where the children are at? Where are the children at in these daycare centers?
I don't care.
Are there children here today?
No.
No children.
Yes.
So this is Quality Leering Center. Hello, we'd like to ask where the money's going.
Attorney General Keith Ellison was focused on one thing and one thing only, and that was keeping these folks in business.
When do you think Governor Walz knew about this fraud?
From the very beginning.
What happened here in Minnesota that allowed this fraud to materialize?
The people at the highest levels of responsibility in the government of the state of Minnesota looked the other way.
Fraud within these programs have involved false claims, fictitious providers, and services not rendered, highlighting the need for stronger verification, monitoring, and enforcement to protect taxpayer funds. These fraudulent actions have robbed taxpayer funds intended to feed children, support individuals with autism, provide housing for low-income and disabled Americans, and deliver health care to Medicaid recipients. Since 2021, the DOJ has charged 98 defendants in Minnesota-based fraud cases, 85 of whom are of Somali descent. Of the 98 defendants, 64 have been convicted. DOJ has now undertaken extensive investigative action, which includes issuing over 1,750 subpoenas, executing more than 130 search warrants, and conducting more than 1,000 witness interviews. Since the start of the Trump administration, the federal response to fraud in Minnesota has intensified following a series of high-profile cases involving state-administered, federally funded programs. One of the initial instances of high-profile fraud in the state involved the nonprofit Feeding Our Future, which was at the center of a $250 million COVID-19 related fraud scheme. As part of the scheme, fraudsters exploited Department of Agriculture, USDA food programs designed to provide meals for children. Federal prosecutors ultimately convicted 57 defendants and described the scheme as the nation's largest COVID-era fraud. The issue gained renewed national attention in late December 2025 following a widely shared YouTube video posted by one of our witnesses, Mr. Nick Shirley. Mr. Shirley's work highlighted suspected fraud in Minnesota child care programs. His reporting prompted federal authorities to intensify investigations, expand oversight, and coordinate multi-agency enforcement efforts. A week ago today, Mr. Shirley released a second video that documented alleged fraud in the transportation industry intended to provide rides for children, the disabled, and the elderly. Mr. Shirley uncovered companies with questionable addresses and vehicles intended to transport children, the disabled, and the elderly that remained idle for extended periods of time. We look forward to hearing from Mr. Shirley about what he was able to uncover. But how did we get here? Hopefully another witness, Scott Dexter, a former fraud investigator for the Minnesota Department of Human Services, can shed some light on that for us. And I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that this massive wave of fraudulent activity didn't just have the consequence of ripping off taxpayers. It has drastically impacted legitimate organizations that are truly helping their neighbors. Jennifer Larson is here today to share her story about how this massive fraud has crippled her organization that serves autistic children. We'd like to think that these fraudsters will one day face justice, but it appears that is not always the case. For example, Yasmin Ali, a daycare and home health care owner charged with stealing millions from Minnesota taxpayers, after being granted bail, disappeared before a trial and has not been located since. That was more than a decade ago. The tentacles of this fraud ring are widespread and include crimes other than fraud. For example, the aforementioned Yasmin Ali. Her brother, Adaris Abdullah Ali, pleaded guilty in 2009 to lying to a federal grand jury about his knowledge of a group of young Somali men in Minneapolis who traveled to Somalia to fight with Al-Shabaab, a foreign terrorist organization against the transitional federal government of Somalia. We can also consider the fact that at least $700 million in U.S. cash transported via passenger luggage through Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. The incidents are all currently under federal investigation, with the majority carried by couriers traveling to Somalia, other African nations, and the Middle East. While no definitive links to funding terrorism have been established yet, we know that hundreds of millions of dollars in cash are being transported to areas where foreign terrorist organizations are active. What could possibly go wrong? A whistleblower has alleged that TSA personnel at MSP, Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport, repeatedly identified encounters with Somali men carrying large suitcases filled with bundled cash, often exceeding $1 million. During an interview, a former TSA agent at MSP from 2016 to 2021, now a whistleblower, Liz Jackson, noted that she saw, quote, suitcases packed with millions of dollars in cash moving through MSP again and again, carried by the same type of couriers, which raised questions that she feels law enforcement and political leaders still haven't answered, close quote. Jackson further explained her repeated encounters with Somali men carrying suitcases packed with cash, and in one case, a bag filled with new passports. According to Jackson, the volume, consistency, and profile of the transactions she witnessed were well beyond ordinary or everyday behavior. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has noted that the department is currently investigating where Minnesota's taxpayer dollars are being placed. Additional reports show that Somali individuals in the United States send roughly $215 million abroad each year. On January 9th, Secretary Bessent indicated that the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN, informed 4 money transfer organizations that they're under investigation for their roles in the fraud scheme involving the theft of funds from social services in Minnesota. He also indicated that some banks in Minnesota are being investigated by the Internal Revenue Service's Civil Enforcement Division for allegations related to money laundering. As you can see, there's much to unpack surrounding these numerous fraud schemes taking place in and around Minneapolis, Minnesota. I would be remiss if I didn't suggest and urge additional investigation throughout this entire country. I know that in my home state of Arizona, our Democrat Attorney General came in to office and quickly said that there have been in fraud just in the Medicaid program alone. And in recent studies released over the last year in Arizona, it's been suggested that as much as $7.2 billion in fraud annually take place in Arizona's similar programs. So this is not just a Minnesota issue, but it just happens to be at the forefront of why we're here today. I look forward to today's hearing, and I thank the members and witnesses for taking part. Now yield back and recognize the ranking member, Ms. McBath, for her opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for convening this hearing this morning to talk about the harm that fraud can cause. And thank you for everyone that is here this morning to testify. It's so necessary that we continue to investigate and prosecute all forms of fraud, including government fraud, which can turn many into victims. That is because a person committing fraud against a government program steals from all of us as taxpayers and abuses the initial purpose of these programs. They harm the organizations that need these programs to operate, and most importantly, they harm the people that the program is designed to help. Whether we're talking about a program that feeds school children, helps seniors find housing, helps people overcome addiction, or provide services to address disabilities, it is critical that the dollars that we invest in these programs actually serve the purposes that we have in mind when we, the lawmakers, created them. That's why the Department of Justice has always combated fraud, including prosecuting dozens of people for perpetrating fraudulent schemes in Minnesota in 2021 and under the Biden administration. But prosecutions are not enough to combat or prevent fraud. So the Biden administration also established a COVID-19 fraud enforcement task force and increased oversight of programs that were being targeted by fraudsters. Minnesota lawmakers have also taken steps to reduce fraud in their state, strengthening the state's ability to stop potential fraud sooner and improving investigations to hold those scammers accountable. But President Trump has taken a very different approach to fraud. Just last week, Trump added quite a few fraudsters to his growing list of people that he has pardoned, not because they are deserving a second chance, but because they hired his friends, back-channeled a donation, or served his political purposes. He has pardoned many people charged or convicted of fraud and other financial crimes, wiping away more than $1 billion in money that would otherwise have gone to victims of crime. President Trump has also fired inspectors general, instructed his DOJ to stop enforcing bribery statutes, and gutted the offices that investigate white-collar crime. That is how we know this hearing is not really about fraud. It is about trust. The Trump administration does not want you to trust these programs because if you don't trust them, they're easier to destroy them. They do not want you to trust entire communities because if you don't trust them, they're easier to intimidate. But we cannot let that happen. We will continue to fight for robust and responsible oversight and for the continuation of initiatives that make all of our communities safer, healthier, and more resilient. Across the country, there are daycares, schools, hospitals, treatment centers, research facilities, nursing homes, fire departments, police departments, airports, and more that all depend on state or federal funding, not just to help those in need, but to serve every single one of us. If President Trump succeeds in an attempt to freeze child care funding across 5 states, which is temporarily blocked by a court order, the effects would ripple across families and businesses throughout our economy. It would affect more than 500,000 children. And these are children that are not just within the state of Minnesota, but 500,000 children, their parents, the businesses and organizations where those parents work, and the many people who depend on those businesses to fulfill needs in those communities. That's the fallout from just one program, addressing one need across only 5 states. If President Trump continues this assault on critical programs, the harms could be far greater. These latest attacks come on top of the cuts that President Trump and congressional Republicans already forced through, which are taking health care from 10 million Americans and reducing food assistance to over 40 million Americans, including many, many children. We don't have to choose between programs that are susceptible to fraud and nothing at all. With proper oversight, we can make sure that every American is fed, that everyone can access housing and medical treatment, and that our daycares and our schools can keep guiding our children towards a better future. I look forward to hearing more today about how we can achieve this goal. I thank our witnesses for being here, and I yield.
Gentlelady yields back. I now recognize the chairman of the full committee, Mr. Jordan. No, I don't recognize him right now, but I will recognize the ranking member of the full committee, Mr. Raskin, for his opening statement.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to all of our witnesses for joining us. In a just world, the Judiciary Committee today would be investigating why a masked ICE agent shot 3 times in cold blood and killed an unarmed citizen, a 37-year-old mom, Renee Nicole Good. We'd be investigating why Trump's DOJ is harassing and investigating Renee's wife instead of investigating her killer. We'd be asking why ICE agents are trained in basic CPR, but 911 tapes have shown none of the agents performing CPR on Ms. Good. They left her bleeding alone in her car for almost 3 minutes and definitively rejected the help of a man who came forward and identified himself as a doctor. We'd be investigating why in another Minnesota case, ICE agents deployed tear gas under the car of a family of 8 people, including a 6-month-old, a 2-year-old, and 2 kids with severe asthma who were just trying to get home from a basketball game. The baby stopped breathing, and his mom had to administer CPR as they desperately waited for medical help to arrive. But our colleagues want to talk about fraud in Minnesota, fraud that was already being investigated and prosecuted under the last administration. It is true that social services fraud, serious fraud, occurred in Minnesota. That's why under President Biden, the Department of Justice opened multiple criminal investigations that to date have already resulted in more than 90 people being charged and 64 people being convicted of federal criminal offenses. Indeed, Minnesota lawmakers acted to root out and prevent fraud going forward in the public benefits program. That's why last year, the Minnesota legislature passed legislation to empower the governor to cut off payments or to claw back funds whenever fraud is detected. And that's why Governor Walz appointed the first ever director of program integrity to make sure the state is effectively investigating and preventing fraud and corruption in their programs. The fraud in Minnesota was discovered not by a right-wing social media influencer who's been harassing people in communities all over Minnesota in recent weeks, but by the hard work of real local investigative journalists, brave whistleblowers, and state and federal auditors. It is this fraud, which we must take seriously, is not unlike the $2.5 billion breathtaking Medicare fraud scheme uncovered last year in the home state of the chairman of this subcommittee, as he himself mentioned, or the massive COVID-19 unemployment assistance fraud scheme uncovered in Chairman Jordan's home state of Ohio. Fraud is endemic in government all over the world. There are fraudsters attacking our public institutions, trying to undermine them and rip them off. Even our president has been convicted of 34 counts of criminal fraud by a jury of his peers in New York related to the fraudulent payments made to porn star Stormy Daniels, and also civilly convicted in New York for different kinds of real estate fraud. Fraud is not headquartered in one state or one municipality, much less one ethnic, racial, or religious community. But President Trump couldn't resist the temptation to use fraud in Minnesota as an occasion to mobilize the power of the federal government to bully and intimidate first and second generation Somali Americans who live in that state. Many of the people convicted in the fraud schemes were of Somali ancestry. So, under the pretext of cracking down on a fraud that had already been discovered, investigated, and prosecuted, Trump surged federal immigration officers to Minnesota and aimed them at the Somali American communities, calling the people who live there repeatedly garbage. This is despite the fact that it is a complete non sequitur, obviously, to send immigration agents to conduct fraud investigations. And the deployment of law enforcement resources against an entire ethnic community after the criminal prosecution of a small group of its members is to promote the sinister ideas of collective guilt and guilt by association, two doctrines that are emphatically rejected in Anglo-American jurisprudence and by our courts. The community targeted in Minneapolis is made up, incidentally, overwhelmingly of U.S. citizens. 95% of Somalis in Minnesota are U.S. citizens, including 58% of whom were born in the United States. Well, what is the Trump administration's actual record on fraud? Well, let's see. President Trump pardoned the big-time drug dealer and convicted fraudster Juan Orlando Hernandez, the former president of Honduras, sparing him a 45-year criminal sentence after he brought in 400 tons of cocaine into our country. That's 800,000 pounds of cocaine that he said, quote, "We are going to stuff up the nostrils of the gringos." And Trump pardoned him. And if you're interested in that particular sweetheart deal, that would be a great subject for a hearing, Mr. Chairman. Just last week, again, the president granted pardons to more convicted fraudsters. Julio Herrera Vellatini was scheduled to be sentenced this month for participation in a political corruption and fraud scheme alongside his co-defendant, the former governor of Puerto Rico, Wanda Vasquez. In late 2024, Mr. Herrera was facing felony bribery charges in a different case. His daughter donated $2.5 million to the MAGA Inc. super PAC. Then in May 2025, Mr. Herrera's lawyer, who had served on President Trump's legal team, negotiated a deal allowing him to plead guilty to a trivial misdemeanor offense instead. Several months later, Mr. Herrera's daughter donated another $1 million to MAGA Inc. And what do you know? President Trump generously granted Mr. Herrera a full and unconditional pardon just last week. They're making a fraud out of the pardon process in America with pay-to-play rules as they pardon recidivist, hardened, unrepentant fraudsters. Well, indeed, in total, President Trump has pardoned more than 1,600 people, depriving victims, survivors, and taxpayers of an estimated, check this out, $1.55 billion in restitution and fines owed to us, the American people, while shockingly, because other presidents didn't do this, but Trump did, while shockingly allowing corporate fraudsters and tax cheats to keep all of their ill-gotten gains. This is a massive and unprecedented swindle from working class people and crime victims as the administration gives all of these ill-gotten gains right back to the criminal fraudsters who stole the money in the first place. And finally, Mr. Chairman, President Trump has dismantled the infrastructure that actually prosecutes white-collar crime and fraud in America, actually roots out waste, fraud, and abuse. The Trump DOJ gutted the public integrity section at DOJ that prosecutes government officials who break the law. And nearly a year ago, his DOJ suspended enforcement of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which prohibits foreign bribery, saying all bets are off. He's gutted the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is the first and the only agency devoted solely at the federal level to protect American consumers against being cheated by big financial corporations. The CFPB delivered $21 billion back to more than 200 million Americans who were victims of fraud and other predatory business practices. And the administration has been gutting the CFPB because they are on the side of corporate fraud and white-collar crime. That's the truth of what's going on there. They fired 17 inspectors general, the independent government watchdogs, whose job it is actually to root out waste, fraud, abuse, and corruption, and left 28 IG offices without Senate-confirmed leadership at all, allowing the corruption and the fraud to run rampant. So if we're going to have a hearing about fraud in America, Mr. Chairman, let's do it. Let's take in the full scope of what's taking place in our country. I yield back to you.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the chairman of the entire committee, Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. I want to thank our witnesses for being here. Estimates are potentially as high as $9 billion we're looking at here in what appears to be a decade-long scam, fraud. I mean, I always look at one program I talked about a couple weeks ago in an oversight hearing was this Feeding Our Future program, where taking federal Americans' hard-earned tax dollars, taking that money and supposedly providing meals to children. Problem was there were no meals and no kids. They're just stuffing it in their pockets. So I think this is a great hearing to have. We appreciate the witnesses and the work that they've done. Ms. Larson and the work she does and actually making a difference, doing a legitimate program. Mr. Shirley for uncovering this, and Mr. Dexter and others who are here. So with that, I would yield back and look forward to hearing from our witnesses and the hearing itself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I recognize myself for just some UCs. The first one is President Joe Biden commutes sentences for two of Chicago area's most notorious fraudsters. North Dakota judge blasts Biden for setting fraudsters free. Biden commutes roughly 1,500 sentences, pardons 39 in biggest single-day act of clemency, including fraudsters. Illinois lawmakers furious after Biden commutes sentences of state fraudsters. Without objection. And now,
Mr. Chairman, could I enter some as well?
Yeah, please.
Thank you much. This UC request is from ABC News, January 2026, titled Trump's Pardons Forgive Financial Crimes That Came with Hundreds of Millions of Dollars in Punishment. This one is Arizona has recovered just 5% of taxpayer dollars lost in a $2.5 billion Medicaid fraud scheme. That's ProPublica. Columbus Dispatch. Columbus mother and daughter among 15 indicted in pandemic unemployment assistance fraud scheme. And finally, a Minnesota fraud scheme timeline from NPR News. Fraud investigation stretched across Walz's tenure.
Without objection. And now, without objection, all other opening statements will be included in the record, and we will introduce today's witnesses. Mr. Scott Dexter. Mr. Dexter is a former law enforcement officer, having served for 28 years. He also served with the Minnesota Department of Human Services Office of Inspector General, where he investigated fraud in the Child Care Assistance Program. Thank you, Mr. Dexter, for being here. And Ms. Jennifer Larson. Ms. Larson is the founder and chief executive officer of the Holland Center for Autism, a clinic that provides services to children and young adults with autism. She started the Holland Center to serve families like hers that were not receiving adequate services and support elsewhere. Thank you, Ms. Larson, for being here today. Mr. Nick Shirley is an independent journalist. His recent investigations and videos have shed light on the scale of fraud in public benefit programs in Minnesota that are currently ongoing. And thank you, Mr. Shirley, for being here. And Mr. Dylan Hetler-Gaudet. Mr. Hetler-Gaudet is the acting vice president of policy and government affairs at the Project on Government Oversight. POGO is a nonprofit organization that investigates alleged wrongdoing by the governor. Thank you, Mr. Hetler-Gaudet, for being here with us today. We welcome all our witnesses and thank them for appearing today. We will begin by swearing you in. Would you please rise and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief, so help you God? Thank you. Thank you. You may be seated. The record will reflect that the witnesses have all answered in the affirmative. And at the instruction of Mr. Hetler-Gaudet, I wanted to let all members of the panel know that when you have a question for him, please say his name so he knows that you are addressing him, please. I want the witnesses to know that your written testimony will be entered into the record in its entirety. Accordingly, we ask that you summarize your testimony in 5 minutes, and we'll begin now with Mr. Dexter. You are recognized for your 5-minute statement.
Thank you. Chair, members of the community, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Scott Dexter. I'm a retired law enforcement investigator with 28 years of experience, most of it spent conducting criminal and financial fraud investigations, with experience in surveillance operations. In 2013, after retiring from law enforcement, I joined the Minnesota Department of Human Services as part of a newly created investigative unit within the Office of Inspector General. Our mission was straightforward: identify and investigate fraud within the Child Care Assistance Program, known as CCAP. I was one of the original 4 investigators hired, all of us former law enforcement professionals with backgrounds in criminal investigations. Our cases were not selected based on the name of the center, the owner, or the community it served. They were selected based solely on tips, complaints, and the amount of CCAP funding being paid out. The highest funded centers were reviewed first, and many of those centers were referred to us through the public tip line or by licensing inspectors who observed activity inconsistent with a legitimate daycare operation. What we found was deeply concerning. Many of these centers operated out of commercial spaces with windows totally covered, no visible play areas, and very few children ever present. Through surveillance, data collection, and review of attendance and billing records, we repeatedly documented patterns of overbilling, non-existent attendance, and in some cases, children being signed in for hours they were never actually at the center. Our investigative process was thorough and methodical. We collected licensing and billing data, installed covert surveillance cameras, reviewed hours of video, identified parents and employees, and calculated estimated overpayments based on actual attendance. Completed cases were then turned over to the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension for search warrants, interviews, arrests, and potential prosecution. As our investigations progressed, we noticed a trend. Many of the centers receiving the highest levels of CCAP funding were owned and operated by Somali individuals, and the families served were predominantly Somali. This was not the basis for selecting cases, but it did become the basis for accusations against us. We were labeled as racially biased, despite the fact that our case selection was driven entirely by funding data. An outside review was launched into our investigative practices. We were questioned about how we selected centers and how we conducted surveillance. Following that review, new restrictions were placed on our work, including mandatory panel reviews before we could move forward with investigations. Investigators were also pulled from conducting new or current investigations in order to enter data from all previous complaints received by DHS into a newly created database, a process that took nearly a year to complete. These changes significantly hindered our ability to do our jobs effectively. Ultimately, in 2019, I chose to retire because the investigative process had become so constrained that meaningful work was no longer possible. Through collaboration with federal agencies, including the IRS Criminal Investigation Division, Homeland Security, and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, we learned that millions of dollars in cash from the Somali community was being flown out of the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport by Somali couriers. At one point, nearly $70 million had been documented leaving the country halfway through a single year. Although we could not prove that the cash was obtained fraudulently, we strongly suspected that it was. We also encountered situations where federal partners were prevented from opening cases due to concerns about political sensitivities surrounding the Somali community and the refugee resettlement program. These decisions had real consequences, allowing fraud to continue unchecked. Throughout our work, we identified several loopholes that made CCAP highly vulnerable to fraud. Centers were allowed to bill for the full authorized hours, even when children were present for only minutes. Billing records could be submitted up to 30 days later, creating opportunities for manipulation. Attendance records were handwritten, unreliable, and often incomplete. And despite our recommendations, no biometric attendance systems, no electronic submission requirements, and no state-installed security cameras were ever implemented. Chair and members, the purpose of my testimony is not to cast blame on any community. It is to highlight systemic weaknesses that allowed large-scale fraud to occur and to emphasize the need for stronger safeguards, better oversight, and investigative processes that are allowed to function without political interference. Thank you for your time and your commitment to ensuring accountability within publicly funded programs. And I am prepared to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Dexter. And now we're going to recognize Mr. Hetler-Gaudet for your 5 minutes of opening statement.
Chairman Biggs, Ranking Member McBath, and members of the subcommittee. I appreciate the opportunity to testify before you today on the important issues of preventing fraud and protecting taxpayer dollars. My name is Dylan Hetler-Gaudet, and I'm the Acting Vice President of Policy and Government Affairs at the Project on Government Oversight. We are a nonpartisan, independent watchdog that promotes a more accountable, transparent, and effective federal government. We view it as our mission to combat abuse of power and corruption in the federal government, which includes working on rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse. The unfortunate truth is that fraud in government programs is a fact of life. Since the United States government has existed, fraud in government has also existed. For much longer than that, in fact. For as long as human beings have been organizing ourselves into societies and building institutions to govern those societies, there have always been those who will seek to take advantage. This is a harsh but real truth related to the human condition, related to our fundamentally fallen and flawed natures. That said, it is still incumbent upon every one of us to do what we can to prevent fraud and to hold perpetrators of fraud accountable. This is especially true when the fraud implicates hard-earned taxpayer dollars and critical public programs and services. This is true whether we're talking about fraud in the context of the Feeding Our Future program or any other program in Minnesota, whether we're talking about welfare fraud in Mississippi, which involved the participation of a world-famous Hall of Fame NFL quarterback. This is true whether we're talking about fraud in the context of it being perpetrated by large multinational defense companies in the context of multi-billion-dollar contract they have with the Defense Department. The point here is that fraud and the abuse of taxpayer dollars is not related to any particular geographic, demographic, or other boundary or characteristic. So why do these things happen so much? Mostly they are caused by deep structural flaws, gaps, and weaknesses in our system of government. They're also driven by recalcitrance and resistance to change on the part of federal agencies. To put it shortly, fraud is a systemic problem and it requires systemic solutions. So what are these solutions? I'm pleased to share a few of them with you today. We must first look at watchdogs, critical sources of information, and practitioners of oversight from within the federal government itself. I'm specifically talking about inspectors general, the Government Accountability Office, and whistleblowers. Rather than attacking, firing, undermining, and intimidating these individuals and entities as this administration and its allies have done, we must strengthen, preserve, and protect them. We must enact reforms to make sure that IGs and GAO can perform their duties effectively and independently. And we must add additional safeguards to make sure that whistleblowers can blow the whistle without fear of reprisal or retaliation. We must also take a long, hard look at the architecture currently in place for how we track, monitor, analyze, and assess federal funding. To put it bluntly, that architecture is broken. Key resources like USAspending.gov are in desperate need of overhaul and modernization. We need to enhance and improve the quantity, quality, timeliness, and integrity of the data and information we collect on federal funding. We need to promote more accountability, transparency, and compliance mechanisms within the chain of spending for federal funding. If we don't do this, we will never have a good grasp on where funding is going, where it's ending up, who is being helped by it, who is being missed by it, and what the ultimate impact is. Lastly, we must enact robust reforms and vigorous enforcement to crack down on corruption, cronyism, and conflicts of interest, which turbocharge waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. The presidential pardon is an acute example of this, with each of the last two administrations using the pardon power inappropriately to pardon convicted fraudsters. We must also promote reforms to crack down on the revolving door between agencies and industries, and to head off pay-to-play politics, all of which distort and corrupt decisions like the award of federal contracts. The takeaway here is simple. Focusing on individuals' salacious, scandalous examples of fraud is akin to looking at the symptoms and not looking at the disease or the root causes of the disease. The Project on Government Oversight stands ready, willing, and able to work with anyone here who wants to work on root causes and systemic solutions so that we can actually get our hands around waste, fraud, abuse, and corruption in the federal government. Thank you for having me here today, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hedlegata. And I forgot to mention, when you get about 10 seconds left, I'll just tip that so everybody will know that as well. So, Mr. Shirley, you're recognized for your opening statement.
Awesome. I'm here today to speak on behalf of all hardworking, law-abiding, tax-paying citizens here inside of the United States. I've helped bring to light widespread fraud that's happening inside our nation, and we the people have had enough of our hard-earned money going towards fraudsters as if it's no big deal. As I speak here, I want to ask everyone a question. How much do we trust when we pay our taxes it's going to benefit our nation? People erupted during the Boston Tea Party over just a few percentages as they believe they were being taxed without representation. Nowadays, we have the representation, but do we trust our representatives? My name is Nick Shirley, and I made a 41-minute video that I posted on platforms like X and YouTube. My video received over 100 million views, and it created instant change within our government. As the federal government launched investigations in departments such as Health and Human Services, froze over $185 million in child care funding until businesses can prove they are legitimate businesses. I actually became aware of the fraud that was happening in Minnesota in June of 2025, as I was there for a separate video in Minnesota and started reaching out to me asking if I was making a video on the fraud. I said, well, what fraud? And this lady, she was a real estate agent, and she says, well, I'm having a hard time selling my properties because people are curious about these assisted livings that are popping up next door to some of the houses that we're buying, or the home health care clinics that are popping up, and we don't know who's next to these houses that we're trying to sell. And I said, well, I'm not going to come and make a video if I don't have any proof. So therefore, I left Minnesota, and I continued to look for fraud in the best way I could. And as I was getting my own information, a man by the name of David reached out to me, and he said, hey, I have been investigating this fraud for years now. I have been driving by these child care centers. I've never seen a single child, and I have received the information from the state of Minnesota as to how much money these places are receiving. I said, great, let me come to Minnesota and we'll make this video about potential fraud that was taking place inside of Minnesota. We go to a daycare, and I'm instantly surprised by what we see. We arrived, and it was an industrialized building, and there was 2 daycares registered at that building. And the first thing I noticed is all the windows are blacked out, and there's no footprints in the snow of any children. There's no playgrounds or anything that would make it look like it's a child care. But above me, a sign read, open 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. But there was nobody there. The doorbell did not even work. And then we continued to go to other daycares, and we noticed the same pattern. No children, blacked out windows, and one daycare, a learning center, spelled Quality Learning Center instead of Quality Learning Center. They had received $1.9 million, yet with that $1.9 million, they could not even spell Leering right on their sign. Governor Walz has said he's been fighting fraud in Minnesota since 2019 and said the buck stops with him. However, how long would it take for you to notice $1 million leaving your bank account and not knowing where it's going? That's essentially what had been happening in Minnesota for years, as billions of dollars have been misplaced. And meanwhile, while people like Governor Tim Walz call people like me a white supremacist, delusional conspiracy theorist, he actually decided to drop out of re-election because I believe of how deep and extensive this fraud is. Thank you very much. Since my reporting, the HHS department froze over $185 million, and to this day, not a single business has been able to prove proof of legitimacy. How fast would you be proving that you are a legitimate business if you have children to actually feed and to take care of? You'd be sending in that paperwork instantly. I made this video to document the widespread fraud that has been taking place, as I truly believe all fraud is bad. And people like me, my generation, we're sick of seeing tax dollars go towards fraud. We just want to have the same opportunities that our fathers and our grandparents had. And when you see people making millions of dollars by committing fraud, it upsets everybody from all age demographics. And so I hope today we can have a good conversation And I think we can all agree that fraud is bad and that fraud is fraud. And I wish the best for our country, and I think that's what needs to be happening, is to crack down on all forms of fraud. So thank you for having me, and God bless the USA.
Thank you, Mr. Shirley. And now I recognize Ms. Larson for your 5-minute opening statement.
Chairman, Ranking Member, and members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to speak today on this issue. My name is Jennifer Larson. I'm the founder and CEO of Holland Center in Minnesota. I've been an autism provider for over 20 years and started the organization for my son. I built Holland Center because families with children like mine were desperate for help, desperate for services and stability, desperate for somewhere they could trust their child would be supported and helped, not sent home on a bad day, not babysat in a classroom and forgotten. We serve the children that don't succeed in public school settings. What started as a small program grew over 2 decades into 4 locations that families rely on, not just for therapy, but for hope, routine, and survival. This work is a labor of love for me. Just like me, there are providers all over the state laboring with love to help these children. And this week, Holland and other programs all over Minnesota are collapsing. Not because we committed fraud, but because a crime ring was allowed to operate inside Minnesota's service system, and the government's clumsy response is now destroying legitimate, long-standing providers and devastating families that we serve. Families come to Holland, they do not have a backstop. Their children often receive 30 or more hours of therapy a week. These are not an extravagance, these are medically necessary. These children learn to communicate, regulate their emotions, reduce dangerous behaviors, and function in daily life. For many parents, therapy determines if they can work. Consistent staff and therapy prevents severe behaviors and regression. Structured care keeps children and their siblings safe. When services disappear, families do not just simply adjust. They face a crisis. For more than 2 decades, Holland has served hundreds of children year after year, employed hundreds of clinicians and staff, operated under yearly on-site audits, inspections, and documentation oversight, delivered real services to real children every day. We have always complied with everything the system required. Yet, within the last month, the state has withheld over $400,000 in Medicaid funds for my own program, and that number grows every single day. I had to infuse my personal funds to survive these weeks, but can't do that any longer without payment. Let me be clear, we are a fee-for-service industry. When we can't pay our staff, we lose our staff and children lose care. Families do not lose appointments, they lose the people they trust. What happened in Minnesota had nothing to do with the ethical, long-standing autism providers. What did happen was organized criminal networks that exploited autism services by opening fake centers, billing for children that did not exist, billing for services never delivered, and stealing millions of taxpayer dollars in the process. These are not minor compliance issues. They are criminal enterprises. Families trusted that the government was protecting the integrity of the system. It failed. Now, instead of doing the obvious thing and targeting criminal actors, the response has been to freeze everyone's payments. That decision does not punish the criminals. It punishes innocent children and families. As Medicaid payments are delayed due to prepayment review by an insurance company that is in the business of denying claims, providers are reducing hours, cutting staff, and starting to close. Families are scrambling for alternatives that don't exist. Children are regressing. Parents are leaving jobs to care for their disabled children. Autism therapy cannot be paused without consequences. Loss of services can erase years of progress in weeks, and abrupt disruption of services can cause lifelong consequences in these children. This is not abstract harm. It is daily trauma for families already carrying an extraordinary burden. The simple solution to the problem: send the criminals to jail and allow trusted providers with decades of clean audits, verified ownership structures to continue providing prescribed ethical therapy, and go back to paying them what we've earned and resume paying them on time. I built Holland for 20 years. Families built their lives around the care that we provide. All of that is risk of destruction today, not by fraud, but by clumsy government response that failed to distinguish between criminals and caregivers. It treats children with disabilities.
The gentlelady will suspend. We've got a photographer there. We allow photographers in here, but not between the panel of the witnesses and the members. You will please move.
Okay,
Photographer, please move.
thank you.
Like right now.
Okay, no, sorry.
Well,
All of that is at the risk of destruction. Sorry, can I continue?
Yeah, please continue.
Not by fraud, but the clumsy government response that fails to distinguish between criminals and caregivers. It treats children with disabilities as acceptable collateral damage. Fraud must be stopped and criminals prosecuted. I'm a taxpayer. I live in Minnesota. This is disgusting. But families and children should never pay the price for government failure. Thank you.
We will now proceed under the 5-minute rule with questions. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Tiffany, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Besides the work Mr. Shirley has done, I want to recognize Powerline, who has done yeoman's work exposing this over the last decade, what has happened. And I just want to say, Ms. Larson, I live in northern Wisconsin. There's an autism school that was started in my community. Where did we visit when we wanted to start that a decade ago? We came to Minnesota, where you have been leaders in having good autism programs. And I think about the tremendous fraud that has gone on in nutrition programs, housing programs, but is there anything more heinous than abusing an autism program?
I can't imagine. It's so hard to believe that people are faking the children have autism and stealing money from the government. When I'm sitting here with my 25-year-old non-speaker, and now children like my son aren't going to have services because they stole money from the government and faked these things. And it's just, it is, like I said, disgusting.
With what's going on right now, what are the families that you're serving? What are they saying?
They're scared.
What are they doing?
Everybody's scared. There are centers that are programs that have already shut down. Staff are leaving. I, this week, asked my staff who will take unpaid leave because we can't keep going like this. I'm like I said, I'm 400,000 plus in debt now, and I'm not sure these are going to get paid back. I went to a bank and they wouldn't back the receivable because they said that's not a receivable. If it's prepayment review, you may not get it.
And Ms. Larson, none of this would have happened if the fraud did not occur. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Mr. Dexter, could have something been done about this earlier?
Yes. As I stated in my opening testimony, in the years that I worked there, we identified how fraud was occurring, the loopholes that existed, and
What were some of the warning signs, Mr. Dexter?
Well, the fact that part of our job was to go and collect attendance records. We would find attendance records that were either incomplete, non-existent. Obviously, there were times we found them to be fabricated because they were given to us way later. And the same with billing records. They were allowed 30 days after the end of the billing period to submit billing records. So they were not immediately available to us. And it kind of allowed overpayments or double payments to be overlooked. So we had the attendance record issue. We had the fact that there was no way to verify who was signing the children in and out. No way to verify what times those children were signed in and out.
Could I do a follow-up here? In Wisconsin, we learned this month that Ibrahima Diop, a Minneapolis school finance boss, placed on leave for failing to submit required financial paperwork with the Minneapolis School District and for signing questionable contracts linked to the Somali fraud scandal, was hired by the Milwaukee Public School System as a deputy superintendent at a salary of $240,000 a year. Do you think it wise? Might that be a warning sign that this person was involved, may have been involved with fraud in Minneapolis? Shouldn't they be concerned in Wisconsin that that they're hiring someone like that?
Well, if somebody that they hire has a past history and practice of doing that type of stuff, I would be very leery of it occurring again or that being the basis that they're hired.
So Governor Evers refused to open the books and is blocking federal audits of our food stamp and Medicaid programs. And he also vetoed 4 auditor positions in a recent budget. Do you think that is also a warning sign?
Yes, if it's preventing.
Or or ill-advised? Would that be a better way to pose the question?
Yeah, if it prevents the oversight and the ability to audit and look at the records to make sure can have a check and balance system, I think that'd be very unwise because again, that allows fraud to occur.
Because, Mr. Shirley, what is happening in Minnesota, it could be happening throughout the United States. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
If there's one thing we've learned or leered, as they say in Minneapolis, isn't it possible that this is happening everywhere?
Yes, I believe it is.
Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize the ranking member of the whole committee, Mr. Raskin, for his 5 minutes of question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank all the witnesses for your excellent testimony. Mr. Hedler-Gaudet, the administration has systematically undermined government oversight. The president has fired more than a dozen inspectors general, not for any cause, but seemingly just in retaliation for doing their jobs and to block unwanted investigations. President Trump has defunded the Council of the Inspectors General on Integrity and Efficiency. He's removed independent leadership at the Office of Special Counsel and Office of Government Ethics, blockading whistleblowers and numerous investigations. What is your assessment, Mr. Hedler-Gaudet, of the Trump administration's apparent systematic opposition to internal oversight mechanisms in the federal government?
Thank you, Ranking Member Raskin. My assessment is that the last year or so has been one of the most anti-oversight, anti-accountability periods that I've witnessed in our federal government. And I think the things you laid out, as well as others, are the sort of proof in the pudding there. And I think speaking of things that should be giving us pause and raising red flags, that should all be giving us serious pause and raising serious red flags about how seriously people who claim to take oversight, accountability, fraud, how seriously do they actually take it?
There's been a lot of attention given to Donald Trump's extraordinary use of the pardon power, as in the pardon of violent insurrectionists and cop beaters. But there's also been a forgiveness of $1.5 billion in restitutionary fines that various people had to pay. And a lot of them are fraudsters. The DOJ in Trump's first term brought bank fraud and tax evasion charges against reality TV stars Todd and Julie Chrisley. They were convicted in 2022. They owed more than $22 million in restitution to taxpayers and to their victims. But then Trump suddenly, inexplicably pardoned them and forgave all of the money that they were supposed to be paying back to their victims. Todd Chrisley bragged publicly about his get out of jail free card, jubilantly exclaiming, "The feds got effed." Let me give you one other example. Trump on April 23rd issued a pardon for Paul Walchuk, a former nursing home exec who pleaded guilty to multiple tax crimes. What he was doing was taking millions of dollars from the nurses and orderlies and doctors who worked for him at his facilities, took more than $10 million that way, instead of giving it to the IRS for their taxes. He used the money to buy a $2 million yacht and to pay for high-end jet travel and to go shopping at Bergdorf Goodman and Cartier. Well, he was sentenced to 18 months in prison for stealing his employees' tax withholdings. And he was ordered to pay his employees back $4.4 million for the money he looted from their accounts. So he's gonna have to pay that back. But then he got his mom to go to a glitzy fundraising dinner for Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago, and she paid $1 million for her ticket. Then, right after Trump was inaugurated in his second term, Walchuk petitioned for a presidential pardon, arguing that he was the victim of political retaliation because they were Trump supporters. And what do you know? President Trump issued a complete pardon with forgiveness of all of the financial fines and restitution that Mr. Walchuk was going to have to pay back to his workers, the nurses and doctors and orderlies. So that was forgiven. That was $4 million taken away from the victims of a fraud and given back to the perpetrator of the fraud. Okay, now, if we had all day, we could go on all day with this because that's how their pay-to-play pardon system works. What does this do to our efforts to root out fraud and corruption systematically in the government and in crimes in different industries?
I think it provides a perverse incentive structure. I opened my statement by saying that we all have an obligation and a responsibility to do what we can to prevent fraud and to hold perpetrators of fraud accountable. But that last bit, holding a perpetrator of fraud accountable, perhaps via conviction, doesn't mean much if all one needs to do is contribute to the right super PAC or attend the right fundraiser, and suddenly that accountability and that conviction is wiped away, including the financial restitution you mentioned. So those kinds of actions are at direct cross purposes with any effort to promote a broader, more systemic approach to rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Thank you very much, and I yield back.
Chair recognizes the chairman of the full committee, Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Dexter, let me make sure we got this right. You get tips and complaints, whistleblowers or others come to you and tell you something's not right at these child care centers in your state that are getting all kinds of taxpayer money. Is that right? That's how it started?
That's correct.
Okay. And then you go and do your work. You got 28 years experience investigating things, and specifically in the crime and financial fraud area. Is that right?
That's correct.
And you go out and find out these child care centers, there aren't any kids. No kids are there. I mean, there's some, but there's like, you don't see the playground. You don't see any kids at a place where they're supposed to be helping children. And then you also find out most of them are run by Somali individuals. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
And then you make some recommendations. You said, here's what we should do. I think you put this on page 2 of your testimony. You said there's some basic things you should do. No, you said they didn't have biometric attendance system. They should do that. They should have electronic submission requirements. They need security cameras. You made some recommendations.
Yes.
And then what happened?
Nothing.
They ignored your recommendations, but it didn't stop there, did it? They ignored your recommendations. They called you a racist, right?
Correct.
Typical left. I always say the left will tell a lie. Big media will report it. You tell the truth. They call you a racist. Exactly what happened here. So they ignore your recommendations. They call you a racist, but it even got worse than that. You can imagine. They started investigating you. Is that right?
Yes, we were interviewed by an outside firm for a report given to the Office of Legislative Auditor.
What did that report look like? What did they say? They call you a racist? What did the report say?
The report basically questioned our investigative tactics, looked at how our unit was managed.
Even though you had 28 years experience in this particular area, tips and whistleblowers came to you, even though that was the whole catalyst for doing this.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. And the end result is what? The end result is Miss Larson, who's actually helping people, she
Correct.
suffers and the people she helps suffers. Is that right, Miss Larson? Not to mention the fact that taxpayers are getting ripped off, but the people who do good work, who actually help people, you suffered.
The disabled are paying for the money stolen.
Yeah. And why do you think all this is the case? So, I mean, all this brings me to seems to be a typical pattern, but in the end, you got to ask why. Why was, when you point out what's going on, you have good people doing good work who suffer, the taxpayers are getting ripped off. Someone's got to ask, well, why did they take not follow your recommendations, call you a racist, investigate you instead of just fixing the problem? Why'd they do that? What could be the answer? Anyone want to hazard Mr. Shirley, you want to hazard a guess? Why that's the case?
Well, they simply use that as a deflection technique to make you not want to speak out against the fraud.
Yeah, it seems to me it's politics, though. You think it's politics, Mr. Dexter?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, the people at the top, like, well, we don't want to do this. We don't want to be called racist. In fact, we found that out a week ago in a hearing where we were looking at this Feeding Our Future program. We found out they actually shut that program off for a while. They said, time out, something's not right here. They found the same kind of things you found, Mr. Dexter. And they said, we're going to stop payment. And then it restarted. And the reason it restarted is because they threatened a racial discrimination lawsuit against the authorities there in Minnesota. So, okay, forget about the fact that when we do this, we restart the money, we're going to hurt good people like Ms. Larson and the people she helps and rip off the taxpayers. We're going to do it all for politics. And we also found, interestingly enough, the Attorney General in Minnesota had a meeting with the key folks in this particular program, and then they find out a couple weeks later, they start sending in campaign contributions. I think it's politics. I think it's politics driving it all. And that's why it's appropriate we're investigating here at the congressional level. That's why it's appropriate the Department of Justice has put in place a specific individual to focus on this, not only in Minnesota, but around the country. I talk too much. Anyone else want to throw in? I'll give you, Mr. Shirley, Ms. Larson, a chance to say anything if you want. If not, I'll yield 28 seconds to our chairman. I yield 20 seconds, remaining my time to the chairman.
Thank you. So, Mr. Hedler Godet, would it surprise you that Joe Biden issued pardons to someone named Crundell, who had the largest municipal fraud in the country's history and had a restitution amount of $53.7 million that was never paid following the commutation? Would that surprise you, sir?
That would not surprise me. And actually, in my written statement, I outline how pardons under the last administration, the Biden administration, they also fall into the same pattern of pardoning convicted fraudsters. So I'm in agreement with you there.
Yeah, thank you. And without objection, that time's expired. So without objection, Mr. Klein will be permitted to participate in today's hearing for the purpose of questioning the witness if a member yields him time for that purpose. And now we're going to go to Mr. Moore from Alabama.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All this talk about pardons and the ultimate shyster, one of them was Hunter Biden. He got pardoned after Joe promised he wasn't going to do that on the way out. So anyway, that's another pardon for another day. Ms. Larson, I'm impressed with your son. I honestly thought he was your attorney when you guys were sitting there. But were there early warning signs, if acted on, that could have prevented the fraud schemes from growing to the scale that we see now?
I'd say yes. Looking back, this Smalley community in Minnesota has a high prevalence of autism. And I know that because I serve a lot of minorities in my centers. So when these centers started popping up, I thought, good for them. You know, like I took care of my son. We have had a waiting list for 5 years, so I thought it was a positive. And then it just started to go and go, where now it's, 400 plus of these. And it started to, I didn't Nick Shirley it, that's a verb now. Go out and go see, because obviously I'm busy and that's not what I have time for. But, I think there were a lot of early warning signs. I think if anybody was actually paying attention.
They would have caught it.
Oh, 100%.
Because how long have you been in business? 20 years?
Over 20 years.
And you went through a number of audits, I think, every year, right?
Every year.
So how is it that these groups are getting away with it and you're under the thumb of the government auditing you every year? Why do you think that is?
Either there's a double standard and they don't, for whatever reason, have the same expectations that we do, or they're just looking.
Maybe Chairman Jordan was on to something. Maybe it's politics.
Yeah.
Mr. Shirley, now I guess investigative journalists are known as right-wing social media influencers. So can you confirm how many daycare centers you personally visited in Minnesota during your investigation?
During that first video, we went to around 7.
How did you select those facilities? I know you said earlier footprints in the snow, but how was it that you identified those facilities to go to initially?
So the man David in the video, he had the daycares with the CCAP funding, and we just simply drove around Minnesota and around Minneapolis area.
Took a lot of courage to do that, I would imagine. Probably more so now than what it was when you initially did it. 100 million views, you said.
Yes, over 140 million views on X alone.
So what was Mr. David's background? How did you connect with him, and how did he call you, or did you reach out?
He simply is just a man in Minnesota who has a passion for his city, and he's been seeing fraud taking place for years. And out of all the thousands of messages I get on Instagram and other platforms, I just happened to read his, and he provided me the information, so I gave him a phone call.
And then from there, just went to those different facilities. What was probably the most interesting thing as you were doing this? I think I saw the video. We watched it, and it looked like it was a number of facilities in the same building.
Yes. So in one building, there was, I believe, 3 daycares, and there was no children. And they were all receiving CCAP funding for separate daycares. There's one daycare we went to that one day it was closed by the government, and then that same day it was reopened underneath another name. And they both received CCAP funding.
I bet, Ms. Larson, they probably weren't getting audited nearly like you were.
I would guess not.
So how many daycares are there in Minneapolis we think are fraudulent right now, Mr. Shirley? Any idea? Or the amount of money total? You get any idea on that?
Well, they've frozen over $185 million and not a single business has been able to prove that they're a legitimate business yet.
It's 185 million for sure that we know. Mr. Dexter, I got a question for you. What common patterns or warning signs usually indicate that the provider or the program may be committing fraud? As you were doing your investigations and 28 years of experience, what are some of the indicators that you see that maybe that should be a telltale sign or a red flag that there's fraud there?
Well, one of the immediate signs that we saw when we would go out to first look at the location is where that was located. A lot of times they were located in commercial areas, and I'm not talking like strip malls or anything like that. I'm talking about like industrial areas where you wouldn't typically find a child care center. We would notice that there was no play area, and if there was any play equipment, it was bare minimum. Now, there was an exception that if there was a playground area within a very short walking distance, that would count. But a lot of times we didn't see that. But the most glaring thing was that when we watched the centers, you know, we would sit and watch it for a couple of days before we even put up surveillance cameras. We would watch and we would see little to no children present. If anything, there would be a few kids.
As you begin to blow the whistle, the investigator became
Gentleman's
investigator.
time has expired.
I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Chair recognizes the ranking member, Ms. McBath.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When he began his second term, President Trump broke from historic norms and fired 17 inspectors general, people who serve as critical watchdogs and prevent waste, fraud, and abuse. A federal judge held that these firings were illegal, but also held that she could not reinstate these people due to their important roles. As a result, the president has been able to appoint acting inspectors general who have themselves been removed after informing Congress that Trump officials are not cooperating with investigations. Mr. Hitler-Gaudette, how do these frequent firings affect the ability of the inspector general offices to prevent and investigate fraud?
I think they fundamentally undermine it, and they also create a real chilling effect for the inspectors general who are left. The incentive to do something that could upset the powers that be suddenly becomes a bit of a risky proposition. And so between the completely undermining them and the chilling effect, you are really dampening and damaging the ability to do real oversight.
Thank you. And how does the politicization of inspector general appointments affect the morale and effectiveness of career investigative staff there within these offices?
It also has a severely negative effect on morale and efficacy within the offices.
So I believe we can and should do more to prevent fraud and improve oversight so that all of our government efforts are doing the most that they can to help the American people. When the Judiciary Committee marked up the Republicans' partisan big ugly spending bill, I offered an amendment that would dedicate half of 1% of funding to be used for oversight and fraud improvement and prevention. My Republican colleagues, they opposed the amendment. Mr. Hitler-Gaudette, in your opening statement, you spoke on steps that Congress could take to ensure robust, nonpartisan oversight. The Project on Government Oversight recently published an article, 7 Ways Congress Should Sharpen Its Oversight in 2026.
Without objection.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anything else that you want to highlight from those recommendations?
Sure. Yeah, I just want to pause to note that Congress really is the indispensable actor when it comes to doing oversight. There's supposed to be a somewhat adversarial relationship between the branches, and Congress is supposed to be the primary adversary when it comes to the other 2 branches and conducting oversight. But that is predicated on Congress taking that oversight duty seriously, irrespective of who is in charge of the other 2 branches. And so I think there's a political will issue there with oversight, but also there are some mechanical issues. So Congress could do a better job of holding hearings that are a bit more bipartisan, a bit more focused on the facts, as opposed to the sizzle of a given anecdote or scandal. I mean, really trying to get at root causes and really trying to take hard, deep looks at the underlying structural reasons why things like fraud happen. It's not as sexy. It's not going to get you as many views on social media, but it's going to actually ideally lead to long-term, sustainable, durable reforms that can really crack down on the problem.
Thank you. And so The short-lived Doge office was supposed to cut fraud. Mr. Hetler-Gaudette, what did it actually do, and how did its actions actually affect everyday Americans?
So Doge was a complete failure. Even on its own terms, the primary progenitor of Doge claimed that he was going to find $2 trillion. Then he moved that down to $1 trillion in waste, fraud, and abuse, cut spending. But in 2025, we actually spent more money than we spent in 2024. At the opening of this fiscal year in October, we ran the largest opening month budget deficit ever run before at $285 billion. We have hollowed out the key functions of a bunch of agencies. So any claims that DOGE was effective either on cutting spending or promoting effectiveness or efficiency are just flat out undermined and undercut by the facts.
And Mr. Hetler-Gaudette, because you have done investigations yourself, did you do any follow-up on Mr. Shirley's video?
So personally, I took a look at some of what had been done to try and backstop what Mr. Shirley indicated in his video by professional journalists at CBS and by professional oversight practitioners like the Inspector General in Minnesota. And as it turns out, they had a difficult time substantiating what Mr. Shirley was claiming to be true in his video. And in fact, they found countervailing evidence, including having been provided security footage by one of those daycares of children being dropped off the very day that Mr. Shirley was supposedly there. So I think in my view, I would have to, I think I'd err on the side of believing the professional journalist at CBS and the professional oversight practitioners at the Inspector General office.
Thank you. I'm out of time. I yield.
Chair recognizes the gentlelady from Florida, Ms. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so on that note, I think it's important that we return to a discussion of how these investigations were conducted and the type of evidence that led to the discovery of this massive fraud. One thing that is clear based on the testimony today is that this is not just a Minnesota problem. This is a warning sign for every state that it is administering large-scale programs using taxpayer dollars. And we need to get to the bottom of how to identify this type of fraud and prevent it from continuing to occur. So, Mr. Dexter, I'd like to go back to your testimony, both what you have shared with us already about your extensive background investigating and analyzing program fraud and the methods that you used to identify the theft of taxpayer dollars in this particular type of case. In your written testimony, you mentioned that case selection and investigations were begun in part by looking at funding data. And I am interested in how your office would use things like funding data, use statistics, and other information and evidence to begin to develop these cases.
Well, it wasn't hard to find the funding amounts. We looked at the centers that received CCAP funds, and then we listed them out. We had what was originally referred to as the top 100 list, and it was based off of centers receiving the most CCAP funding, and that was generated through the billing process and the people that administer the funds.
And when you looked at that list, did it turn out that there were certain facilities that were outliers in some way, either because they were receiving a larger amount of funding based on student population than appeared typical, or because of where they were located? Tell us how you identified which facilities warranted further review.
Well, when we started looking at the centers that were receiving the most funds, the investigators were each assigned cases, were assigned centers, and we first started looking into what the billing pattern was, or what the billing amount was, how many children were being billed at these centers, and we would have centers that were billing for 120 plus children, and looking at the different days and times, kind of establishing a pattern that just was outside the realm of a typical daycare center.
So in other words, you used objective data and evidence as the foundation to proceed further with your investigations.
Yes, in order to start the investigation, that's what we would begin with.
And in your experience, wouldn't you also say that that is the typical method or atypical method for beginning and analyzing a potential fraud case of any nature in any community?
Yes, because in order to do the investigation, you first have to find out if it warrants an investigation and to what extent that investigation would be.
And now, isn't it also correct? You mentioned in your testimony systemic weaknesses that allowed the large-scale fraud, even after you had developed substantial evidence that there was in fact fraud occurring, that there were institutional and systemic barriers that prevented you from successfully moving these cases through prosecution. And indeed, in your testimony, you note that in 2019, you chose to retire because the process had become so constrained that meaningful work was no longer possible. Tell us about the barriers and ultimately that profound frustration that led you to retire.
Well, when we were originally hired, when this unit was originally created and we were hired with the understanding that our job was going to be to investigate fraud and stop it. And as we proceeded through with that, it wasn't by our doing that it turned out that the centers we investigated were predominantly Somali. But once that was kind of brought out to light, the roadblocks that were put in front of us, being called racist, being called before these boards to be investigated. And basically it wound up turning us into auditors. We wound up just simply reviewing attendance records and matching them up with billing. There really wasn't a lot of substantial investigation anymore. And most of our cases wound up going before administrative hearings rather than criminal.
Which in the end allowed this pattern of conduct to continue to occur, did it not?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields. Chair recognizes now the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Knott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To my colleague from Florida, thank you for that line of question. I'm going to pick up where she left off. In regards to the testimony that we've heard today, the other side of the aisle makes us believe, or wants us to believe, that the fraud has been effectively stopped, that they aggressively pursued it, they prosecuted it, and that it is under control. Is that your interpretation of where we are, Mr. Dexter?
I believe the fraud is still going on. I don't think anything has changed from what I've seen with Mr. Shirley's videos. I'm seeing in his videos the exact same things that we were seeing back from 2014 to 2019 when I worked there.
And it's astounding to me when I was looking at some of the footage, the evidence, there was almost a sense of, we are owed this money that we're stealing. How dare you investigate us? Did you ever encounter that type of attitude when you were performing these investigations?
There was an underlying attitude like that, that we were taking away their money and that it wasn't fair to them.
In your investigation, sir, was the fraud as obvious as it seems to me that it appeared in the videos and the other evidence that I've reviewed?
Yes, as a matter of fact, when we would go out to do our investigations, one of the things that we would have to do, or I would have to do, is we would scout out a location for our surveillance cameras that allowed us direct line of sight to the centers, all their accesses. A lot of that, because of the location where we were in these industrial, commercial areas, meant we had to go to businesses and ask them permission. And the number one comment they made was, oh, you mean that daycare center over there where there's no children? So everyone else around it saw it.
In regards to your investigation, sir, I'm assuming that you did not just investigate daycare fraud. What other types of fraud did you investigate?
No, our function was strictly child care fraud, but some of that overlapped into, even though we didn't investigate it, a lot of it was also tied into the medical transportation. And
did you ever investigate single entities that were appearing as though they were committing fraud in multiple avenues?
I'm sorry, can you say?
So it was like, was there one facility that was a daycare? It was also associated with the medical transport. Were there people who were double dipping into fraud in your investigations?
Not that we saw as far as different organizations, but there were where one daycare center owner owned multiple daycare centers. So what we saw was more within the daycare center.
Yeah. Ms. Larson, thank you for being here. I echo my colleague's sentiment from Alabama. Your son is very impressive. What's his name?
His name is Caden.
Caden, thank you for being here today. You look sharp. You're doing great. Let me just talk to you about these various audits that you were subjected to. How rigorous were they?
Very. They'd be there for hours, come in and say, I want to see these files for these kids at this date and this time.
Was there any way that you could have tricked them, concealed it? If you had not had any children there, would it
Oh
have
my
been
gosh.
possible?
Absolutely not.
In regards to the services that you've rendered, first, thank you.
Thank you.
And then in terms of the budgets that you require, how does it make you feel when you hear firsthand accounts that hundreds of millions of dollars have been taken out of the country in suitcases to hostile nations?
I can't even respond the way I feel about that, but I will say it's still happening. To the questioning there's only 2 autism centers that have actually been shut down
Yeah.
of all of these that are going on.
Yeah.
So what they're doing is this prepayment review and putting us through this AI system at Optum to look for suspicious claims, which is why our funds are being held. And it's not going to work.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, it's not going to work. I mean, they just need to do what Nick did. Go and see that there's no kids there. Go and check it out.
And what Mr. Dexter did, data-driven review,
Yeah.
without any preconceptions, without any prejudices, and then holding the fraudsters to account. And when he did that, he was called a racist.
Yeah.
It's astounding. It is astounding. And you said that you help many patients, diverse patients.
Yeah.
How have those patients been harmed by this administration in Minnesota, the Walz administration?
They are all being harmed if I shut down next week.
Is that what you're up
Yeah.
against?
Well, if I haven't gotten paid now, the last date of service was December 5th. I'm over $400,000 in debt. My payroll's $250,000 every 2 weeks, and we get paid every 2 weeks. So on Sunday night, I'll know if I get any money. I haven't been paid a dime. All my claims have been held. So I'm preparing to. And apparently in Minnesota too, I can't just pause services. If I pause my services, then the DHS can say, "I'm sorry, you've lost your license to serve the kids through this program." So I don't know what they think we're supposed to do.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you for being here. I appreciate all the testimony. Sorry I didn't get to everybody else. There's a lot of questions. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you.
Gentleman yields. I recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Kiley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Shirley, thank you for your testimony today and the work that you've done. Americans hear these numbers of the fraud that we have, and whether it's 10,000 or 10 million or 10 billion, sometimes the numbers, you almost become desensitized to it. And so the way that your video was able to show people the fraud sort of in real life actually happening, I think opened a lot of eyes and has helped to catalyze a level of scrutiny that we really should have had before. So you mentioned in your testimony that you think that what you discovered in Minnesota, that this is not isolated to that state, but likely exists in other parts of the country as well, correct?
Correct.
What makes you think that?
Well, now you're seeing, since I posted that video, lots of other people have started to go to other locations, for instance, in Ohio or in Maine or in California. They're also seeing the similar fraud take place in other daycares, for instance, in a lot of other locations.
Yeah, I have a particular interest in California, being from that state, and we know that there's been a lot of fraud. There was $32.6 billion that's been confirmed in unemployment insurance fraud. There's 1.2 million fraudulent community college applications. Have you gotten any sense, or have you seen any signs there that sort of are similar to what aroused your suspicions in Minnesota?
Yeah, and fraud in California might be worse than the fraud in Minnesota.
What makes you say that?
Well, $24 billion went missing for homelessness. They've been trying to build this train for years, yet there's hardly anything to prove for that. Fires.
Yeah, those are good points. So you look at let's run through a couple of those. Because I mentioned the areas where we have confirmed fraud, but then you also have these areas where you have so much spending, and then we look at what results from that spending, and there's nothing. So $24 billion in homelessness, and yet the homeless population went up, and a state audit found that they couldn't even figure out where the money went or what the outcomes linked to that spending were. Is that something that is kind of a red flag for you?
Yeah, it's a major red flag, and you don't even have to be smart to be able to know that that's a red flag.
Well, unfortunately, our state legislators haven't managed to figure that out, or at least the governor hasn't. So what are you saying about him?
They're not smart. No, but yeah, I mean, it's so obvious, and that's what we saw in Minnesota is how complicit the government has been in enabling this fraud to happen. Quality Learning Center had over 90 violations, yet they continue to give that daycare $1.9 million.
Yeah, that's a great point. That there's the political accountability just hasn't been there, and that's what enables it to continue. So then you mentioned the high-speed rail as well. So there has been about $18 billion spent so far. No track has been laid, and not a single passenger has ridden the train. So when you spend $18 billion on a train and there's no train, does that raise suspicions for you?
Yes.
So you think that's might be something worth looking at?
For for sure.
We also had a $650 million 911 service that they scrapped after 6 years, so absolutely no value from it. Maybe that's another example where there might at least be questions.
I think you got a lot in California.
All right, well, we'll look forward to seeing what you find. We're certainly trying to use whatever tools we have here to bring more accountability in California as well. Mr. Dexter, I wanted to also ask you a couple of questions about your work, because you have extensive experience on the law enforcement side trying to detect fraud. That's actually how in California we discovered the EDD fraud, the unemployment fraud, is it wasn't the state suddenly figuring it out. It was district attorneys who came together and investigated and in fact pointed to the fact that the state had let this happen and failed to heed their warnings and hadn't taken basic fraud detection steps. So is this something that you encounter? Like, what kind of internal controls make it so fraud is more difficult, and what type of lack of internal controls make it so fraud is easier?
I would say the biggest thing was the fact that when we tried to investigate this, once we started bringing cases forward and it showed that the number of centers that we investigated were Somali, the biggest roadblock was the fact that they didn't want to follow through on these cases. They shut down investigations. They made us, in light of the report from this outside management firm, we spent nearly a year pulled away from our investigations because one of the things they determined was that when our unit started, we didn't have a proper case management system for recording and keeping track of the tips. So as investigators, we instead had to spend nearly a year entering past complaints made to DHS into a newly created database. We couldn't do our investigations because of that. So they kept us from doing our work, basically.
Yeah. So the states that make fraud detection a priority have less fraud than those that actively contravene efforts like yours. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield back.
Thank you. Gentleman's time has expired. Recognize the ranking member, Ms. McBath, for some UCs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record an article, Republicans' claims of fraud are a pretext for unpopular and drastic Medicaid cuts.
Without objection.
Thank you.
And so I have.
I have some.
You have a UC? Yeah, please go ahead.
Actually, forgive me, I have a handful of them here, Mr. Chairman. The one is a letter dated October 21, 2025 from Representative Benny Thompson to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. regarding the decision to rescind the $101 million penalty imposed on Mississippi. Press release dated September 17, 2025, titled Governor Walz issues executive order directing state agencies to take additional steps to combat fraud. Executive Order 2501, titled Preventing Fraud and Establishing the Financial Crimes and Fraud section of the Department of Public Safety, signed by Governor Tim Walz, January 3rd, 2025. Article dated December 2nd, 2025, titled Trump calls Somali immigrants garbage as U.S. reportedly targets Minnesota community. Article dated January 9, 2026, titled 5 States Sue Administration for Withholding Billions in Social Safety Net Funds. Article dated January 10, 2026, titled Behind the Somali Daycare Panic is a Mother and Son Duo Angling to Become Top MAGA Influencers. Article dated December 31, 2025, titled Right-Wing YouTuber Behind Viral Minnesota Fraud Video Has Long Anti-Immigrant History. Article dated January 11, 2026, titled Fact Check What's Really Happening with Childcare Fraud in Minnesota. And finally, article dated January 13, 2026, titled The Trump Administration Says It's Cracking Down on Fraud, but it gave a red state a pass. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection, Chair recognizes Ms. McBath again for the UC.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record an article titled Trump's Child Care Fund Freezing in 5 States could cost families $400 million by Julia Cation of the Century Foundation.
Without objection, I recognize myself for a series of UCs. From Fox News, Biden clemency for convicted fraudsters met with outrage. Slap in face. From CNN, victims shocked after Biden grants clemency to Kids for Cash judge and $54 million embezzler. And from Axios, Biden sets presidential record on pardons and clemency. Also, Minnesota daycare expose, journalist strikes again, and part 2 names the hub of the fraud wheel. 78th defendant charged in feeding our future fraud scheme from U.S. Attorney's Office, District of Minnesota. Suitcases filled with millions in cash flew out of MSP airport. Ex-TSA agent connects dots years later from Survival World. From the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS freezes child care and family assistance grants in 5 states for fraud concerns. From the U.S. Attorney's Office, District of Minnesota, 6 additional defendants charged. 1 defendant pleads guilty in ongoing fraud schemes. This is from the local Fox News in Minneapolis. Through the years, a decade of investigating fraud, Minnesota. U.S. Department of Homeland Security release. ICE continues arresting worst of the worst in sanctuary Minneapolis, including pedophiles, gang members, and drug traffickers. From MSN, TSA flags suspicious cash outflow at Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport. From MSN, foreign ATM, Somali cash exodus from Minneapolis exponentially larger than other major U.S. airports. From Breitbart, SBA cutting off grants to Minnesota over reports of Somali fraud. Vance praises YouTuber Nick Shirley reporting on Minnesota fraud. Waltz and Omar using ICE operations to distract from fraud scandal. And from Just the News, in Somali fraud scandal, Republicans probe evidence of a blue state election scheme. From the New York Post, ringleader of $250 million Minnesota welfare fraud scandal ordered by judge to forfeit Porsche and luxury goods. From LifeZet.com, TSA whistleblower, Somalis regularly flew out with suitcases stuffed with millions in cash. From Fox News, Minnesota welfare fraud probe targets Somali Hawala money transfers. From the Star News Network, feds probe hundreds of millions in suspected Somali cash and luggage leaving Minneapolis Airport. From USCIS announces results of Operation Twin Shield, a large-scale immigration fraud investigation. From PBS, Nome says Homeland Security is investigating fraud in Minneapolis. From Cornell Law, this is the 18 U.S.C. Section 666, theft or bribery concerning programs receiving federal funds. Also, same source, 18 U.S.C. Section 641, public money, property, or records. Also, from same source, 18 U.S. Code 1001 statements or entries generally, and without objection. I now recognize myself for my 5 minutes of questioning. So, I have read all of your statements, and I do thank you, Mr. Hedler-Godet, for your recommendations. Mr. Dexter also had some recommendations. I think those are prescient. I think those are important. But I also have to bring some additional information out just because it's in my nature. I got to do it. So, Mr. Hedler-Godet, you've been talking about the IGs because you were asked about the IGs. Do you know how many cases, for instance, criminal cases are being investigated, say, by the Department of Homeland Security IG right now?
I don't know the number off the top of my head, no.
Would it surprise you if there were 650 ongoing cases with 200 of those being COVID related?
That would not surprise me, no.
And do you know how many audits they have going right now?
Nope.
They have 60 audits going right now with another 20 investigations going. That sounds to me like the IG there, at least in DHS, is not being chilled because of the appointment of temporary IGs. Am I wrong on that, or am I misconstruing that?
One thing about the DHS IG, Mr. Joseph Kafari, is he was actually appointed under the first Trump administration, and he has remained ever since. We actually at the Project on Government Oversight have long recommended that Mr. Kafari be fired because he has had a long and demonstrated track record of slow-walking investigations at DHS, particularly when it comes to abuse of force and other issues with DHS agents.
And yet the Oversight Committee for the IGs didn't adhere to that recommendation. So anyway, that point, I felt that point needed to be made. Additionally, Mr. Dexter, you looked at some of the same kind of physical evidence that Mr. Shirley looked at with regard to physical presence at the various daycare facilities that you were examining between 2014 and 2019. Is that true?
Yes.
And you saw basically the same kind of physical evidence that Mr. Shirley exposed.
That's correct.
You also looked at funding data, and you also had whistleblowers.
Yes.
And I find it interesting that somehow local news, which reported on the fraud, other local news reporters who reported on the fraud credibly agree with the findings of Mr. Shirley. Is that what you have seen as well, Mr. Dexter?
Yes, Fox 9 News in Minneapolis, they followed a lot of our cases and did stories on them.
And so I mean, the very notion of trying to discredit Mr. Shirley because he got a lot of views, or that some CBS reporter disagreed and said they couldn't find the evidence, actually, in my mind, discredits the CBS reporter. That's because, I mean, I appreciate the ranking member having cited the Arizona fraud, which I also constantly cite. It's a massive fraud in Arizona. Not just the 2.5 billion, but there's another additional allegation of about $7 billion per year fraud in Arizona. I think there needs to be a change there. I think we need to get a handle on this, not just in Minnesota, but nationwide. Because what we've seen in Ms. Larson's case, those who are conducting themselves according to the law, delivering services, are the ones that also get punished. But if you're a fraudster, somehow you're able to keep on going. And the fraud hasn't stopped. Mr. Shirley, have you seen any evidence? You said twice today that $185 million of recipients, not one of them has been able to demonstrate that they are a legitimate business.
No, in fact, they're actually actively suing the HHS to prevent handing over any information.
Right, so they don't even want to give the information that would be required of an audit, that would be required from a separate independent investigation. They want a court to intervene and enjoin and prevent them from having to respond to this kind of investigation. Is that correct, Mr. Shirley?
That is correct.
So, I mean, this is the thing, and I think, I've listened to the panelists, I think everybody on the panel, I think everybody up here, we all want to stop the fraud. But the bottom line is, it's so infused with politicization that it is preventing us from just sitting down there and saying, okay, we got a symptom in Minnesota and we're going to fix it. I think the symptoms being exposed is critical because then it actually motivates people to try to get to the root cause. I'm out of time, and we have no other members here, so I just want to thank each one of you, from Mr. Dexter, Mr. Heather-Gaudet, Mr. Shirley, and Ms. Larson, for being here and giving us your testimony. I really appreciate it, and I would encourage my colleagues to be better stewards and have better oversight, because otherwise, Mr. Shirley's generation is going to be paying through the wazoo, which right now means $40 trillion in national debt. So thank you all. Appreciate it. We are adjourned.
We are adjourned. So here, let me go ahead and answer some of your comments. Porgy, I am sure that you are Somali because the low IQ shows very well. It's very obvious to see it. I don't understand where your logic goes for knocking at a steakhouse at 4 in the morning. I'm not sure where you get that from, but definitely you don't want to do that. Guys, if you guys been watching with me this long, one, thank you guys for the super chats. You guys know that I have self-deported to Honduras. So all of my libtards should be happy, should be celebrating right now that I self-deported to Honduras. Unfortunately for you guys, I only self-deported for 3 weeks. I will be back in the States. God willing, it's always God's willing. I'll be back in the States in 2.5 more weeks and be back in my home studio / bedroom. Of course, that's where I have my studio on with my lights, my monitors where I can see better, I can read better. I didn't know how great I had it when I was in the United States. I tell you what, even if I did, okay, you guys already know what's happening this year. Okay, so I'm gonna go back. We're gonna be running a campaign. Hopefully, it's God's will, it's gonna happen. Um, so when I get back, if Washington happens to go in the direction that Washington is gonna go, yes, sir. I just finished my lunch while you guys were watching. I was typing and eating. Thank you guys for your super chats. If you're using the PayPal, thank you guys for also PayPaling me. I appreciate you. Should be back in the States very soon. For all you libtards that come in here, just speaking negative, well, you guys cannot say self-deport because I have done it, but I have to go back to the States in 2.5 weeks. I could stay here for at least, I don't know, 5 years. As an American citizen, I can stay here indefinitely. But I do have responsibilities in Washington. So I got to go back, take care of those. I got to show you guys that we are going to run. Thank you, bro. Coyote Ice is going to come get you and drag you back. Bro, that would be funny. That would be funny. I wonder if any Democrats, senators will come down to Honduras to take me back to the States. That would be awesome. Anyways, guys, thank you for being with me. I am going to go outside for a walk if it's not raining. And if I have good enough reception, I will try to go live just for those who have taken the time to become members. I think I can choose members only on my live. So I will show you guys a little bit about, in the neighborhood where I'm at. Obviously, it's not going to be too long probably because, I'm walking around and I don't want to bore you guys. But tonight is going to be a movie night. So we're going to be going to the movie theaters. I believe tomorrow we're actually going to make a road trip. I think. Don't quote me. I'm letting my brother do his thing. So I'll tell you right now, I am happy by the simple fact that I am here in Honduras. That's it. That's it. Even if I'm here in the house eating some of the food here, because that's what I get. I get the food here. For breakfast today, just so you guys know, my Patriot brothers and sisters. For breakfast, I had some fried plantains, plantain chips. I had some refried beans. Oh, it's nothing like it doesn't compare. Like the beans here, it's not the same as you buy in the Mexican fried beans, refried beans. Nope. The flavor is so much better. I had that. She made me some eggs with some medium dry cheese. And what else did I have? I think that was it. Yeah, I think that was it. And some black coffee. And then, Baba, hey, thank you so much. When you have PayPal me, brother, it has helped me tremendously because PayPal, I can get it immediately. It pay a small fee, but you get it immediately to where if any super chats or any money that we get from views and things like that, it's a whole month that we have to wait for that money to be able to do something with it. So yeah, you have blessed me a lot. I know you have been the only one that PayPals me from this channel, and it has been a huge blessing. So thank you, bro. I appreciate you. Motorsports Plus, right? I can check the messages if there's anything on there because I am doing live on that phone. But with that being said, hey guys, thank you so much. Okay, if I get good reception when I'm outside, I'm gonna go live just for you guys. Hey, Guilty. If you guys haven't become members, we'll encourage you to become members so that you can join our live while I'm here in Honduras. And then also in the future, just so you guys know, I do plan on putting into my budget getting internet from Starlink. Because when I go up to the mountains, there is no cell phone reception. So I would love to just, carry my tripod, my camera, of course, to take pictures, but I want to be able to carry the Starlink traveling pack, and so that I can have internet while I am in the mountains. I'm also going to be trying to save up so that I can get a power generator, electrical power generator. The one that I want is going for like $2,900. but I have power for like 2, 3 days. And so that's going to be amazing. I'll be able to drive up to a mountain and then give you a live right there. I think that's going to be phenomenal. This is just something for the future in my channel. I want to be more than just politics and religion. I want to be able to just blog with it as well. So if you are just subscribing to my channel, if you are becoming members, 100%, thank you so much for that support, because that's a monthly support. Now, I know that there has been gifted memberships, so a lot of memberships cancel and they will go away. But for those of you who are getting badges of how long you've been with me, thank you so much. God bless you. God bless your family. Guys, God bless the USA. And I will see you guys on the next one. I will try to go back live tonight. If there's something in there, we'll see. We'll see. I haven't been able to plug in my headphones. They're not pairing with my laptop. So we'll see how that goes. This dude is a secret liberal. No, Azron, I used to be a liberal, but not like the American liberal. Liberal as if it was here in Honduras, which is actually what Republicans are stand for now. So thank you so much, guys. I will see you later. God bless you. God bless your family. And God bless the USA. Peace.